Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubble.
Hal Sparks.
All right, let's do this.
Okay, all right, okay. This is one of those days. Now, I'm going to try and not gloat too much. Johnny Million, welcome to the show, by the way. How are you this fine day?
I'm good. Missed you last week.
I missed you too. Absolutely. Of course, you will have to work in the salt mines an extra 2 days to make up for that lost time.
Looking forward to it. That might be why I did it.
That's right, because you're the only person who says yes, please, when I rub salt in their wounds. It's weird. Of people, But hey, look, you asked for it in your union contract, and I'm here to deliver.
That's right.
So I think you've been regularly off. Your diet of the news is not drinking from the fire hose like mine is. And yesterday, while I was doing my live stream, I was dipping into the usual because the Republicans are trying to, they're so trying to crowbar this Hunter Biden tax thing into, dear God, Joe Biden has sold out the entire country. Never mind the fact that their guy was caught on tape saying, I know these documents are classified, but I kept them anyways. Never mind that. The important thing is that these Second Amendment purists think that Hunter Biden saying he doesn't use drugs when he was using drugs on a form to get a gun would be wholly unnecessary if it was one of them. They don't even think that form should exist.
Right.
Much less, that if it was anybody else, they'd go, look, he's got the right to own a gun. Just because you're high on crack doesn't mean you don't fear for your life. Anyways, it's like they've been hammering that away. And so we were diving into their sort of next chapter, because every time you turn around, there's another, oh my God, this is it. The Durham report was the biggest lump of excrement in the punch bowl, I think, for them lately, because it's been a drip and drab kind of a thing with their bad news around this. But when they were like, the Durham report's going to nail it. Oh my God. And Trump was at his rallies going, where's Durham? Where's the Durham report? And then it comes out and it's basically like the conclusions of this 400-page report was that the FBI shouldn't have opened a full investigation. They should have opened a preliminary investigation before they opened a full investigation. Doesn't doubt any of the materials in it. It doesn't say any of the evidence is fraudulent, fake, or not true. Doesn't say any of the assertions that the FBI came to or any of the convictions they got were wrong. Nope, just the steps. I'm honest to God, it was like a Bruce McCullough character from Kids in the Hall going, and then I built a shelf out of pork rinds, and it's just standing there telling you how to do your job over your shoulder. So, that they have been hammering this for a while. And then of course this Comer thing, which is like, it's kind of like most sequels. It was like a sequel to the Durham report, but it was just lame. And it was sort of, you're promised a new story, and they really just rework the origin story to try and massage it for the current appetite. Right. So pretty hilarious across the board, the fail. So we were looking at people like Glenn Beck and Dinesh D'Souza and the usual gang of idiots who were flipping out about it. And then my lovely chat room, who are with us today and who are amazing beyond measure, were like, Hal, Russia is happening right now. Because, I'm caught up in what I'm doing. And sure enough, because yours truly follows a bunch of pro-Ukraine and pro-Russia Telegram channels where all the lunacy is, I jumped right in there and we started looking at this stuff as it was unfolding. So let me catch everybody up if you're not aware. there has been an ongoing fight between Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head, and Philip Ittner will be joining us in the second hour, and he'll have even more insight into this as it goes, because it is literally unfolding as we speak. Yevgeny Prigozhin has been in this tit-for-tat fight with the Ministry of Defense, the Russian Ministry of Defense. Prigozhin runs the Wagner Group, named after Hitler's favorite composer. Just in case you are under the impression that these might be the good guys in this. There are no good guys. This is when you find yourself on a Florida beach and an alligator is slowly making its way towards you. You are laying down and you are trying to figure out a way to get away without moving too quickly, but you have to get on your feet, and it can outrun you, so you're just slowly kind of figuring out it. And a panther attacks it, and the panther and the alligator are tearing each other to pieces. And you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna walk. I'm just gonna go this way. This no longer involves me. Right? It's
And if
that
one of
kind
them
of thing.
wins and you're still around, that's not awesome.
That's right, exactly. Whichever one wins, you don't want to be standing there eating a hot dog. So and there's a reason I brought up hot dogs. It'll be in a minute. So Prigozhin runs the Wagner Group. It's a paramilitary group. It is a mercenary group. They are paid separately from by the Russian government. They have been involved in horrible atrocities throughout the world. Namely, they're in Africa. They are hired by some of the more disgusting regimes through, sort of on loan from Vladimir Putin. There are stories of them cutting open the bellies of pregnant women and eviscerating people as warnings that this is old school, putting people on stakes kind of stuff outside of a city, letting them bleed out alive as a warning to anybody who might try to cross these guys. All right. And when they say the white soldiers in areas of Chad and Sudan and a myriad of hotspots across Africa, what they're talking about is the Wagner guys, specifically, when they're talking about horrible things that are being done. So the Wagner group is not the good guys. You might cheer for them to be successful in this to a certain point, but it's not because they are decent in any way or they are finally waking up to how awful Putin's war is. So nobody get under do not carry that illusion around at all. So, Yevgeny Prigozhin was a hot dog salesman in St. Petersburg, literally. He started from that. He was very successful selling hot dogs. He formed his own catering company. He, at one point, got a job being, quote unquote, Putin's chef because he opened some fancy restaurants and Putin liked to eat there. He liked his hot dogs medium rare, and they were perfect. And he liked his filet mignon hot dog, and he would go to these restaurants and that they became close. So he, all of a sudden, around 2014-ish, Prigozhin gets this contract to form this group with money from, more than likely, Russian money that Putin had been siphoning off. Remember, Vladimir Putin is a guy who makes $140,000 US in, as the president of Russia, and he's worth $200 billion. I'm just saying, there might be a second set of books. Anyways, so these two guys, thick as thieves for a very long time. During the war, since this all started, the Prigozhin and this guy Shoigu, who's the head of the Ministry of Defense, he's kind of running the war for them. He's a bit dopey and not the most qualified guy in the world. I know, looking at how well they've been doing, you may go, come on. No, it's true. And in this process, and by the way, hi chat room, welcome, and like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show if you're out there on the interwebs at infotainmentwars.com. So Shoigu and Prigozhin start having sort of a war of words that escalates into a war of actual bloodshed, and there have been small, firefights, and they've written them off as like drunken Russian soldiers or drunken Wagner guys or drunken prison conscripts that the Russians have hoisted onto Wagner and said, train these guys up and send them to the front line. That's been part of the job of the Wagner group as well. So, and a bunch of those guys, after they finished their tour with the Wagner group didn't want to keep them They don't want those inmates as part of their regular order group. So they just sent them back to Russia, and those people have been on killing sprees. It's shocking that, mass murderers let out of jail to be turned loose on the Ukrainians, when sent back to Russia, keep killing, because it's what they do. It's not so much the target, it's the activity. It's like whittling. So anyways, the mercenary group and the Ministry of Defense, I've been at loggerheads for a while, and it was all kind of, if you'll recall, over the last year, it's been ebbing and flowing. There's been these dust-ups where, oh my God, what did he say? He's standing in front of Prigozhin was standing in front of a line of dead Wagner fighters, the real ones, not the conscripts, the ones that he trained up himself, and these were guys he spent good money on, by God, and they're all laying there dead, and he in the dark, and he's yelling at Shoigu on camera that was released on social media, on Russian social media, on VK and on their Telegram channels, screaming that you're responsible for my dead guys because they didn't have the ammo, and therefore they ran out and they just were, at that point, just target practice. And there was that part alone, for a lot of people, should have been the moment where he got killed. Anybody else would have been pushed out of a third-story window in Russia for that stuff right away. And yet it kept on, and then because they needed him. That's quite frankly, it had a lot to do with Bakhmut. They needed him for Bakhmut, and so interestingly enough, he sort of called their bluff, and he said, "We took Bakhmut, we got it, it's all done, we have the whole city. Now we're leaving." And so they pulled back, and they were like, "We're going to go fight elsewhere, if here at all. We're building up contracts in Africa and other places. We're for hire. So we did our job. You paid us to take Bakhmut. We took Bakhmut." He stood there with a flag and said, "Look, it's taken. See that? See that rubble behind us? Consider that taken." And then he bugged out. Since then, there have been these reports regularly throughout the war of Russians shooting Russian soldiers who are retreating. It seems to me that the Ministry of Defense bombing the Wagnerites is sort of a version of that. So 2 days ago, one of the big Wagner camps was hit with a missile strike from the rear. Was definitely the source of it was from the Russian side.
You could say it's a back door, but I call it a smart door.
Now, when that happened, the number that we've kind of settled on, it was watery at first, but about 2,000 Wagner mercs were killed in that initial missile strike. And then there was follow-up gunfire and artillery strike, which I've only seen directly from Prigozhin and those guys, and from people around the Russian soldiers that they've talked to, because they kept firing. It wasn't just, "Oops, we accidentally hit you with a missile." They followed on this. The idea was to wipe everybody there out, and they didn't do it. Effectively, they swung and they missed. When we come back, Chapter 2, Wagner turns around and heads for Russia. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. Okay. Yeah, I blame Obama's tan suit as well, chat room.
Yeah.
And let's see. In here, let me bring in the chat room so they can see you guys. The hard part yesterday, Johnny, was trying to show footage of what was going on without showing just exploded heads and torn bodies and stuff.
That's everything that's on Telegram, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a mix.
Yeah, I've seen you scroll through that before. That's horrible.
We shined. Yes, we did, CSL. Yes, we did. Thank you, brother. And thanks to CSL and Andrea and to Mark for throwing stuff into the Discord, the staff Discord, while I was doing it, because we're all gathering it at once. We were all just everybody was just kind of pulling from wherever they could find it, because I can only look at 2, maybe 3 sites at once. But they were pulling from all. Can Comer blame the coup on Hunter Biden's laptop? Yeah. Mm-hmm. They're gonna go That's the Comer's gonna have this thing where he's like, man, what is it? What? Our witness had Hunter Biden's laptop. He was in Voronezh or whatever the city, but he was camping under the road they blew up. He's
60
seconds.
Thank you, Devin.
Welcome, Elaine. Hi, thank you. Thanks for the hype train. Ra's al Ghul hiring the Joker. Yes. That's the thing of it. Like again, this is Trump town. This is maggots finding out that Trump is going to shake the baby. We got a pit bull. He's going to scare off all these bad people. And then he grabs the baby and starts going, and you're like, wait a second. That's how that works, stupid. That's why civilization is good. What's happening?
I've already got some questions for Phil.
Excellent.
He apparently had a vlog this morning.
Yes, he did. He was sort of vlog casting this morning because he had to. I mean, he woke up to it. I was ahead of him for once because we were looking at it. Thank you. As it went on,
because he was asleep.
Welcome back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Okay, chapter 2. So we're catching you up on what actually happened in Russia overnight. In that, after the dust up between the Ministry of Defense and the Wagner Group reached a crescendo with the Ministry of Defense firing a missile at, and then artillery strikes and machine gun fire. Apparently the Wagnerites went, hey, maybe they're doing this on purpose, and they got really mad, and then they turned around 25,000 strong, allegedly, with another 25,000 already in Russia, allegedly. We'll see. Mm-hmm. And they headed across the Russian border through a checkpoint like butter, apparently where they only had like some mild firing. The only reason the border guards fired on the Wagnerites when they were coming is because they thought they were Ukrainians. Then they stopped.
Oh, no.
And then welcomed them. Once they
identified.
Oh, indeed. Then they crossed. Yeah, Dem Boston Brian's in our chat room. Hi, Boston Brian from Midas Touch, and the videos of this. The videos of that stuff are crazy. So, then they cross over. They enter into Russia. Apparently, according to Prigozhin, hugs and kisses all around at the border crossings, wherever they've gone through. They get to Rostov-on-Don, which is the city where supposedly Shoigu is hiding or lives or has a house or he's not in Moscow. He's supposed to be down there. So they head straight for that dude's house. And with all that stuff about like the Ukrainian-Russian sympathy troops fighting in Belgorod and going in there and, doing a little dust up and then getting out, the bug out that happened a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Apparently it took about a few hundred Wagnerites to take Rostov-on-Don, the city of 1.1 million people, including surrounding the military installation there. There's this big kind of like, think of it as like a Pentagon satellite office building in Rostov-on-Don, because there's also a military base. That was on fire. But the building itself, the administrative building, they surrounded it with tanks and guns and apparently just took it over. And video came out after sunrise there, after the sun had come up, of Prigozhin walking around glad-handing with all the guys who work in that building, or at least the ones that lived or the ones that didn't bug out. Yeah. And I guess that's the hard part to tell, which is holy smokes. So there's the next, this message comes out. The civil war is on. Prigozhin is saying that's it. This is happening now. It is a civil war. And they have argued, and it turns out to be the case in some areas, that I think it was the 22nd Special Forces group of Russian Special Forces is on the side of the Wagnerites now. They have joined with them, which doesn't sound good. I don't think. Like that would sound that wholly a negative if you were in the Kremlin. Yeah. And the pathway that they have argued, and this has been going on for the last 12 hours, is they go into Rostov-on-Don, they go, and then they're headed to Moscow through a place called Voronezh, I think it's called. I'm going to butcher the name because what the heck. And I can't open I got to put this on the other screen when I'm live streaming because I don't want to stumble on something that's fairly awful. But the Russians had decided they're definitely coming. It's on its way, and they have to go through. I'll just call it Voronezh until I find a different way to pronounce it. We're going to blockade the road there with these giant. It looks like garbage trucks. These orange garbage trucks, and they did about 3 deep, like garbage trucks 3 deep to block the road, and the Wagnerites blasted right through it. It slowed them down about 10 seconds. Now I'm about to show on our screen at infotainmentwars.com and at twitch.tv/HalSparks. This is a train station I'm showing online outside of the station. Yeah, this is the station in Rostov-on-Don. Citizens are leaving the town because they are worried that Russian forces are going to be ordered to come in and start fighting the Wagnerites who have taken over that building, and therefore they are leaving. The interesting thing, though, is that on their way out of town, they are walking up to soldiers from the Wagner group and thanking them for doing this. They are glad-handing with them.
This is so confusing.
Yeah, so imagine how Putin feels right now. Everything was going so well. So this, they are halfway to Moscow right now. They entered Russia last night around 2 a.m. And they are their time. And they are halfway to Moscow right now. Wow. Which, I mean, the pucker factor in the Kremlin right now has got to be just off the charts. Wagner has allegedly shot down 3 Russian helicopters that were firing on them. So I'm going to guess a soft negotiation after the fact is going to be a bit difficult. I don't rule it out because gangster to gangster, I'm sure that to some degree, Putin's impressed. That said, and we'll probably have to do this after we go to break, Putin did finally, after not saying anything, Putin finally came out and made a statement this morning. And while he was making that statement, Russian, I guess, military and, I guess, state construction crews were just destroying roads. They were trenching highways, literally destroying their own roads in the middle, just creating giant 6-foot by 8-foot trenches in their own highways because the trucks didn't work. I'm showing that online as well right now. That is not, strictly speaking, I think, how Vladimir Putin thought this would be going a year and a half ago when they started this ridiculousness. Now, after we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Putin's statement, but also there's
supposed to just be like 2-3 days, right?
Yeah, it's 3 days. That's the joke that's going around. It was supposed to be 3 days to Kiev, and now it looks like less than 3 days to Moscow at this point for the Wagnerites. That said, the Wagnerites having access to nuclear weapons is insane. Now, no one will order them, will fire them on orders from the Wagnerites anytime soon. So the United States and all of our allies will be, it'll just be malware time. But we'll talk about a little bit on that on the other side. But the messaging coming out of the Kremlin is less than believable. And the tankies are having a really rough time. Phil and I are going to have a hard time, not just popcorn and in his case champagning our way through the misery that is the people who have been supporting Russia this whole time and going, they're going to win. There's no way the Ukrainians could win. There's no way. And meanwhile, today, Russia is destroying its own roads to keep its own mercenaries from taking its own capital. Wow. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah. That is... Oof.
I broke their ass.
Can you hear that, by the way, when I play that? Did you hear the sound effect? Did that go to you?
No, what did you just play?
Hold on.
The past wasn't that long ago.
All right, they should be able to hear that, but we'll find out. No, why not? Okay, it's okay. But it goes out over the web. So yes, I definitely could. I'm pretty sure I can smell it. Eyes are watering. Yeah, I get into like scrolling through Telegram and on this stuff, and I gotta be careful because you'll run across some stuff and it'll be not good. Not too good, as Trump would say.
Good.
Not too good. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is just coming up. Boz is a little behind on this, but this is the helicopter they shot down. And again, think about this in terms of what it really is. The Wagnerites are walking up to a helicopter they blew out of the sky with some dead Russian pilots and dead Russian soldiers in it. When it went down, supposedly, if they didn't eject or get out or whatever, I don't know, depending, or leap free when it was close to the ground, who knows. And I think this was the plane that they shot down. Yeah. They shot down one of the fighter jets too, because they're dragging it like anti-aircraft systems. They're not just going in like with rifles. They're bringing their whole kit, and they shot this down. Hold on, let me look. Yeah, the Ka-52. This is the plane. Wagner, Yevgeny Podubny publishes a photo of the wreckage of a Ka-52, the helicopter, of the Russian armed forces shot down by fighters of the Wagner PMC in the Voronezh. Voronezh is the place where that's halfway to Moscow.
And what does PMC stand for again?
Paramilitary company, I think. Something like that.
That makes sense.
Yep.
That was kind of what I resolved in my head, but it seemed too easy.
Professional Military Company, Inc.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, and they blocked the roads. So all these people are like, I got to go to work. And
I'm trying to get to Blockbuster.
Yeah, right. I've got to return this tape by 4 o'clock or I'm going to get penalties. Look at that. Can you imagine what
coming
maggots
back in 15.
Thank you. What maggots would be doing if Joe Biden had to dig up friggin' highways to stop the Blackwater from attacking the Pentagon?
That'd be unreal.
You got to say he's a strong leader. He's a very strong leader. He's the strongest of strong leaders.
Attention. Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So lots of people, throwing their 2 cents into this, sort of Monday morning quarterbacking this stuff, especially on the tanky side. And if you don't know what a tanky is, if you think back to the easiest example I can give is that in the Tiananmen Square massacre, these people were on the side of the tank, that they are so committed to their support of
Team Tank.
Yeah, Team Tank, right. Against these upstart individuals who think democracy is a good thing or think you should have a say. So, by the way, Anton Gerashenko is Gerashenko_EN, which I think is his English account. Is one of the other sources like on Twitter where people can go and see some of the stuff. And one of the most recent thing, there's tons of stuff. But according to The Guardian right now, Wagner groups may reach Moscow by tonight. And because they are blazing a trail and nothing is stopping them. Last night, the tankies that I was watching online flipping out about this, who, by the way, all thought this was a psyop and was like video created on Midjourney, or like AI video.
That doesn't take you very far, just denying reality.
Nope. Yeah, it's not it's not a long-term strategy, certainly, because it will
it's definitely it might help you get to sleep that night.
It might help you get out the door, right? Like, no, that's all fake. That's all fake, whatever. And then you go, taxi, and that's it. That's how well, right? But currently, outside, there is a plan apparently in Moscow that has been a part of, I'm sure since the Cold War or previous, who knows? That it's called, like, it sounds so Thundercats, but it's like fortress mode where they have, it's the fort,
Thundercats.
Yeah. And apparently Moscow is under a fortress alert or whatever it's called, whatever the Russian second word is. But the idea is that we're going to turn Moscow into a fortress. The whole city will be all the police stations and all military checkpoints will be aligned and working perfectly so as to create, as you will, a wall with a moat and alligators and I don't know, knights in shining armor standing outside and people firing arrows. Anyways, just embarrassingly lame, as it's something you have to say. And if it doesn't work, it's even worse. Like, there's always a problem with naming stuff that, you know what I mean? It's like naming your battle plan Operation Mission Accomplished. You know what I mean? Like,
it hits a little too close to home. Huh?
It does. It kind of does. Well, technically speaking, Iraq has had elections, and Saddam Hussein is no longer there. So Operation Iraqi Freedom, as a bumpy road as it might be, they're not
eventually, yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, at least you had an out in that regard. So let's see. 43 minutes ago, I guess one time wasn't enough. Apparently, the second Russian presidential aircraft, rUsSiA 2, has left Moscow and is also headed towards St. Petersburg. There are only two planes in which Putin is a passenger on. The first one and the second one, and both of them have left town. And yet Peskov is still saying, no. He's still, Putin is still here. He's in the gym. He's busy bench pressing 300 pounds of bear meat stuck on a spear that was taken from the side of Jesus Christ. So the ongoing part, and by the way, I have no doubt that when Phil joins us at the top of the next hour, this will be, it will be very difficult for us to get a word in edgeways. I will say this. Things are so bad in Russia. They're so bad that Steven Seagal is trending on Twitter. That's how bad it. That's how you know it's bad.
I do not understand the correlation, but I'm here for it.
He's a Russian citizen now. He moved to Russia. He considers himself a friend of Putin. He defends. He doesn't speak a word of Russian though. Oh boy, that's the thing. Here's one of Hal's personal tips. If you're going to move to an authoritarian country where they, on the regular, spray radioactive waste and poison in people's faces and shove people out windows whenever they get tired of them or they're no good, or they don't like the cut of their jib anymore, I would suggest learning the language, because at the very least, you'd understand at least the whisper campaign around you. How stupid. And I know people like this in China too, who live and work there, don't speak a word of Chinese except, xie and zaitian, thank you and goodbye, which is what, when they ship you off to a re-education camp, yeah, right. That's the last thing you're going to, it's what everybody's going to be saying to you. Oy. So yeah, Steven Seagal. And if you ever want a good time, go look up some of the video of him doing his kind of glad-handing videos inside of Russia, where he's the one of him eating a carrot is particularly hilarious.
Oh, that is amazing.
Yes,
I'm
he's
just
going
a
around.
fan of if you go to YouTube and look up Steven Seagal running.
Oh, that's not good. Yeah. Everybody
He's a
needs to
bad
get off
run.
Tom Cruise's back, because Tom Cruise
Yeah.
running is just the fact that he runs. He runs perfectly well, though. He's a good runner. He's rock solid. I
It just
don't
looks
know
like
what
he's
Steven
trying
Seagal
so
is doing.
hard. He's got those little bitty legs. They're just pumping.
Yep.
Go,
And yeah. So this is
You're like a foot taller than him, Hal.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 3 inches taller than him, 4 inches taller than him. Yeah, to be fair to the guy. In the Voronezh region, where the Russians are very concerned that the Wagnerites are getting through, it should come as no surprise that according to Baza and the human beings that are on that road who live around that area, Russian Air Force struck civilian vehicles trying to fire on the Wagnerites. Now, again, the Wagner group is using a mix of military and civilian vehicles because they just picked up whatever they could in Ukraine and rode through on it. So if you look at the group when they crossed into Russia, when they were there were only 2 videos that I could find that showed the Wagner column coming into Russia, into Rostov-on-Don, and there was mostly these military transport vehicles, some trucks with tanks on them, which was pretty scary, I guess, for the locals to see them coming this way. And then a few, SUVs, white SUVs with like Russian flags on them, because they are flying the Wagner group is flying the Russian flag while they're moving, because they're Russians. They believe they're patriots. Welcome to Trump world. Yeah. This is just, it's insane. And like I said, as an ongoing aspect of this, I'm going to see if I wanted to find also to show on the live stream the video of people walking up and saying, thank you, just don't start shooting. We're with you. Leave us alone of the Wagnerites. Like the people on the street coming up to the Wagnerites and going, we hate this. We don't want this war. We never wanted it. We can't say anything because we're going to, they'll kill us or they'll throw us in jail. Now, Kadyrov is the other aspect of this. This is where it gets ugly. So, Kadyrov's group, the Kadyrovites or what have you, there has been a lot of, fighting between the Russians and the Kadyrovites and the Wagner group and the Wagner group and the Kadyrovites. And they've been punching each other. I mean, they're largely all drunk, except for, I guess, the Kadyrovites. They're Muslims, so they don't drink. So they've been sober when they've been murdering their fellow Russians, if they're even that, because they're from Chechnya, but whatever. Anyways, the big question right now is, if Putin calls the Kadyrovites calls Kadyrov's people in to fight the Prigozhin crowd, will they do it? And right now, word on the street is it's a coin flip. That they very well may be more angry with the Ministry of Defense than they are with Prigozhin and his crowd. And all they need is one phone call going, hey, guess what? Chechnya is all yours. Then it's done. If Prigozhin and the Wagnerites say, if we're successful in deposing Putin, we're going to give Chechnya back to the Chechnyans. That in and of itself, it would end this. And I can't think of any particular reason why Prigozhin's crowd would even care. Most Russians don't. As a matter of fact, the bloodbath that was the Chechen War was one of the things that almost made Putin lose his job at one point. This is when the turn can happen so easily, that it was never like the illusion that this was something that the Russian people wanted, and this is a part of, it's an existential threat that the Russians needed to do, and NATO. Now, which brings me to, and we got to take a break, but when we come back, a lot of this started with.
Phil says he's ready. If he could jump in.
Oh, let's bring in Phil. I'll bring in Phil early. Yeah, Phil. Let's take a break, and we'll bring in Phil in the next part because the video that Prigozhin put out that explained how the war started, that goes against the entire NATO expansion nonsense coming from the Kremlin and all of its suck-ups in the tanky world about we had to do this because NATO was coming and they kept expanding and expanding. And here comes the head of the Wagner Group, the only successful fighting force over there, saying that's not at all what was happening. This was a cash grab. We'll be back right after this. It's House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Mm-hmm.
I gotta step away for a sec while hopefully Phil is connecting.
Hold on. Whoops. Yes. I'm gonna grab him right now. Phil, can you hear me? And can we hear you? I don't hear you. Don't hear audio yet. Hold on one second. Paste you in here. See if that changes. But I'm not getting a signal of audio from you yet. We're good. Still not hearing you yet. Work on that. Might have to give permission to the browser, all that kind of stuff. We shall see what we shall see, what we shall see. Right now it says you went away. Everyone leaves. I'm going to be here by myself. By the way, into that one. Hold on, go to me. Hi, chat room. Thank you guys so much, by the way, for your support today. I'm trying to juggle all this stuff at once. We will make it happen. He's probably doing a restart on his computer. Whoa. Holy smokes. Okay, so let me show you something while we're
back in 20.
Okay, Johnny's back. There he is.
I'm back.
Johnny. He's back, and then I hear Phil, so that's good.
Yay!
Yay! There he is. Okay, cool. Let me do this so I don't hear double. Think you sound okay? Check for me, Phil.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right. Let's go here. Move this over here. I've still got you on D. Snyder style lettering from the other day. It's all right. Do this one. Okay. We're coming back. Yep. Are we back, Chicago? Oh, I don't. Okay, now I don't hear Chicago.
The House Sparks radio program, Mega.
Still the trailer.
Yep.
All right, now you're on, and I'm apparently doubling.
Yes, that happens. I'm trying to shut that down. I have to turn that on to switch. Anyways, welcome to the show. Welcome back, everybody. Fixing stuff. We got Philip Bittner on a little bit early in the process. I'm going to let's see. I'm going to turn on your noise gate for us. Yeah, it's okay. You're okay, Johnny. In that regard, and I'm going to turn off his auto gain because this, and we should be good. That should help a little bit. Okay, now. Welcome. Lots going on, Phil. Glad to have you here.
Yep.
You did a vlog this morning. I watched it. I have since, by the way, there was a firefight in Rostov-on-Don since they took that place over. There was a Russian airstrike on a Wagner column on the M4 highway in Voronezh, and they hit civilians in the process. Yeah, Voronezh. Voronezh. Yes, finally, I can pronounce it. Thank you for being here.
There you go.
People are coming up and giving water and food and in some cases cash to Wagnerites.
Yeah.
this woman was caught on tape. I saw it early this morning, giving water to Wagnerite, and that somebody filming her said, "Why'd you do it?" And she goes, why are you giving them water? And he goes, "Well, they look thirsty." That was it. Like they look tired. They must be tired. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great way to cover. So, all right, catch us up on what you've been hearing, what you've been seeing, your take on this stuff. Yeah, have at it.
I just got off the phone with a Russian colleague, friend, contact, and Russian media. He's a Russian journalist. So I kind of hashed it out with him a little bit. We talked about several things that I'm sure we'll bring up in the conversation that we have today. This is bad. This is bad for Vladimir Putin. This is bad for Russia. This is a inflection point. He's not. He will. The rest of there will be a point before this and a point after.
Right.
It will never be the same for Vladimir Putin after this. Just like it was never the same for him when he had to transition to be prime minister because the Constitution limited him to 2 terms as president. I mean,
right.
It's one of these things where when we look back on the path of Vladimir Putin, this is going to be a moment in time when things will change for him. He will not survive this the same way as before. Now, my Russian friend says, yeah, he equates it more with Mussolini's March on Rome. When Mussolini tried to seize power in the 30s and he marched, or was it the late 20s? When he marched on Rome and he forced the king to give him a portion of power. And it was never the same after that. Eventually, it was just Mussolini rising to power, rising to power, rising to power.
Right.
If Putin is seen to acquiesce to Prigozhin in any way, shape, or form, it bursts the bubble of him being the guy in charge of everything. He's the man. He is the state. He is everything. He is the central power in Russia. Russia is Putin. Putin is Russia. If Prigozhin can manipulate him, or force him to do something that maybe he didn't originally want to do, he'll never recover from that because he won't be the big macho tough guy.
Right.
And he's broken pretty much every promise he made to the Russian people. So I mean, he doesn't walk away from this. And then if he sides with Shoigu and Gerasimov and somehow beats Prigozhin in the Wagner, which really is just Prigozhin. If he beats Prigozhin, he's still going to be seen as kind of like beholden to the Ministry of Defense guys who Prigozhin is kind of right. Have not been doing that red hot in Ukraine. Prigozhin walks around with the mystique of having conquered Bakhmut, rightfully or not. And that gives him a lot of cachet in Russia. Shoigu has had his moments in the sun, and then he has been kind of out of favor. Currently, he has been in favor. He's been on TV every single day. Russia is a very controlled information sphere. Everything is pretty much controlled by the state, except for the people who are savvy enough to have VPNs and stuff.
Right.
But if you're an average Russian citizen, certainly in the provinces, certainly of a certain age, you're getting all your information from one source, and that's the state.
Real quick. The one of the factors in this, and we have a little bit of like extra audio coming from your way, Phil. So I might mute you when I ask a question. I'll unmute you. One of the things that we hear, that have sort of been a standout aspect of this in the last little bit is this video that Prigozhin put out saying that the reason behind the war, the idea that it was because of NATO expansion or there was something happening on February 24th that we had to do it, or that the Ukrainians were ramping up attacks on the Donbass. He says that's all garbage. And not only does he say it was a lie to start with, and that was, that reasoning and that sales pitch was baloney, but that it was started by the Ministry of Defense, Shoigu and those other guys, and the regional governors and military commanders in the Donbass who were effectively bleeding the place dry, effectively just stealing from it. And they only started this because they wanted more area to steal from. That was his thing. The whole NATO expansion storyline, he said, is garbage.
Yeah, yeah. He said the whole the whole NATO expansion, the whole Ukrainian aggression against Donbass, that was all a false narrative. That it was that the Ukrainians had no intention of actually attacking the Donbass. That they restricted their attacks to Russian military units. That this idea that they were attacking civilians in the Donbass, that was BS. That's the central narrative that's come out of the GRU and the Kremlin to justify what they're doing. So he is in effect saying the war is complete BS. It has been created, and we have marched into this war on false pretenses, and he's pointing the finger at the intelligence community, at the military intelligence community, and against Shoigu in particular. Again, if you watch my blog, I talk a lot about how they have tried to keep Putin out of this because it's important that because of the way Russian government is created, the center must hold, and Putin is the state, so he must survive. So it's not that Putin made any bad mistakes in his war in Ukraine; it's that he's been betrayed by the boyars beneath him, and that is a thing that we have seen throughout Russian history. What normally would happen is that the boyars, who are the subordinate command, Shoigu, Gerasimov, they would fight it out amongst themselves, and then a victor would emerge, and then the Tsar would side with that. So the Tsar doesn't get his hands dirty. Putin has, in some ways, had to come down off his perch on high and get involved, and that's not a good look for him either. He doesn't come out of this. He does not come out of this unscathed. How bad? I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, part of this is he fled. The theory is that he's fled. That he is. I mean, both of his planes have flown to St. Petersburg, so he is no longer in Moscow for fear that the Kremlin will be the site of an attack of some sort. Either his own men turning it over to him at some point. Hold on one second. We get audio. I'll fix that order of his own men turning it over to the Wagner guys when they show up, which would be horrifyingly embarrassing, or an actual gunfights on the street of Moscow, which seems like our only two options at this point, other than them being stopped, I suppose, outside of Moscow in a huge fight on the outskirts. But if they break through, or any of their associated Wagnerites or sympathetic Russians, any of those folks inside that barrier, inside the fortress of Moscow, if any of them decide that now's the time, and what better time would there possibly be?
Yeah, how much time do we have before break?
We have about a minute, 2 minute and a half.
Okay, plenty of time. Here's the difference. Okay, I do not see this as being a street uprising or a street revolution like we have seen in Russia in the past. This is going to be a palace coup supported by armed units connected to those various factions within the power structure. Why do I say that? Because I don't think Russians are going to want to go on the streets again. They did it in '91. They went through the awful '90s. The trauma. The Russian people have been really traumatized throughout the Soviet Union, into the fall of the Soviet Union. I don't think that there will be, and I don't think that they will take to the streets.
My argument would not be that the Russian people are going to be not going to be in a street fight.
I know. No, this isn't going to be a street revolution. This is going to be a palace coup, not a street coup. And it's going to be armed factions on the streets of Moscow. But the people themselves, like we saw in '91, with them going up on the streets, and you remember that scene with Yeltsin on the tank?
Oh, sure.
That ain't going to happen. I agree.
Right? We got to take a break. When we come back, I'll bring up sort of the latest. 4 minutes ago, the Kremlin soldiers are mining the paths that the only other options, if they can't blow up the road, they're mining them around Moscow and the highway around there. You can see the mines on the street. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We're talking about Russia's civil war, which is in full swing right now, it seems. We'll be back.
What's all that audio coming back from Phil?
Yeah, I know. Phil, we're getting a lot of
Are we coming through your speakers?
No, it's like street noise. Do you have
Noise.
another mic? Let's see. You're using the Bose earbuds.
I want to hear you from the
Hold on.
Bose. I could do that for my mic.
Okay, hold on.
Sounds so much better.
I just switched you to your MacBook. I have control over your sound.
Too.
Yes. So, yeah. So, yeah, you
How's
can
that?
hear us.
Is that better?
Way better. Way better.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Someone in chat said it.
Sorry, I'm
like
getting a
Disney
lot.
Soup kitchen.
Mm-hmm. No, that's okay. This is way better. Yes, it's good. And then I'll turn on the noise gate.
I'm getting a lot of chatter.
Of course. Yeah, there's got to be a lot going on.
Yeah, a lot of people are writing to me all the time, so I'm trying to tell them I can't talk right now.
Because you were too busy talking. Yeah, so Kremlin soldiers are not only blocking but also mining paths in an attempt to repel Wagner's PMC group.
Sweeney.
Yeah, what's Sweeney saying?
Sweeney has sent me. Oh God, I can't talk about that right now, John. He's asking me what.
Phil, so I got the Lark M1.
He's asking me about microphones.
Nice, yeah, as you do, because he's going to be on the air, and he's like, "What do we do?" Right. By the way, there are pictures of Wagner mercs sitting at a cafe in Rostov. They're eating, and some of them are just buying stuff.
I saw them
buying stuff in stores.
They went to Vkusny Tochka. They went to Vkusny Tochka, which is it's McDonald's.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're sitting at a place called
post sanctions.
Place called Meat Story, which sounds hilariously like my diet right now. Meat Story is the name of the place they're at right now, and then there's a bunch of them in like a corner shop.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's bizarre, right? Did you see the street queen, the street sweeper?
Yes, the people cleaning streets.
Sweeper,
yes.
And he's right next to an APC and a guy pointing weapons at the KGB or the FSB headquarters.
In Taganrog, in Russia, they are, I can't tell if it's Russian soldiers or Wagnerites. It looks like Wagnerites.
There's also talk of Krasnodar. Look, Rostov-on-Don, you got to understand, that's the military headquarters. That's the headquarters for Southern Operational Command in the entire Russian military in Ukraine. That's their launching point from whence they send all the troops into Ukraine. That's why Gerasimov was there apparently, and he had to boogie out when Prigozhin came his way. It's a big deal. And they're. I thought that was Chicago coming back. Rostov taking Rostov without a shot being fired virtually, marginally, is a pretty big deal for him to march right into Southern Operational Command and give a dressing down to the deputy minister of
It's
defense.
like Blackwater. I've seen Blackwater trending, and it's largely because people are making comparisons. Like they're saying basically this is like Blackwater rolling into Virginia and taking over the Pentagon's, not the Pentagon, but the secondary military base that they have close to the Pentagon, the biggest one that they use, one of their satellites. Yep. Crazy.
The whole thing is great, and it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah,
I think it's going to get worse. And then we'll talk about that further into the pod.
Mm-hmm.
Because Putin's screwed. Putin's so screwed. It's the end. This is the end for him.
Yeah, and the Ukrainians.
I think it's the start of it's the beginning of the end of the Ukrainian war. I know people have been shouting at me all day today about, you've been predicting that for months. I've been predicting that when it happens, it will be immediate and it will be sudden. And that's what's happening.
Well, at 9:55, as of 10 minutes ago, Kiev Post is announcing that the Ukrainian armed forces have launched an offensive in several directions in the east simultaneously. They are taking this as a kickoff point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised.
And then shots are being fired in Rostov-on-Don.
Chicago's
right now.
Coming back.
Okay,
I don't think Hal can hear him right now.
I cannot hear Chicago for whatever reason. I only hear 2 out of the 3 people that are on the thing, and luckily it's you guys. But so let me know when we come back. Okay. You can say welcome back when we go.
Please hold. You are back.
You know what? A couple of things have happened in the last, like during the break. This is how fast this is moving. Philip Bittner is still with us, at Philip Bittner on Twitter, 1L2Ts. He did a vlog this morning from Kiev about what's going on in Russia right now and kind of catching people up. If you need a shorthand explanation of the history behind this, that's a great place to go. Go to his YouTube channel. Johnny Million is here. He's going to be farming questions from the chat. I'm sure they have a ton. We already had them before you even showed up, Phil. But right now, in the last less than 10 minutes, the bridge over the Moscow River has been dismantled. Shots are now being fired in Rostov-on-Don, which is the first city the Wagnerites took. And the Ukrainian forces have launched an offensive in several directions in the east simultaneously. They are taking this opportunity as a huge go-ahead. And by the way, on a lighter note, the Moscow mayor said Monday will be a non-working day to minimize risks. They're expecting this to go sideways and the city to effectively be incapable of pushing anything. But don't worry. Even though the Wagnerites have attacked, Putin has retaliated by removing their posters from all around Moscow. I'm not kidding.
And you can no longer buy their merch. You can no longer buy their merch.
Yeah, well, that'll show them.
They have merch?
Yes, of course they have merch. Everybody's got merch. ISIS has a very shiny magazine. This is 2023, Johnny Million. Also, and
magazines.
That's right, zines. Yeah, I learned that on the ISIS Substack or whatever. No, anyways, so this is. We might as well jump straight into some of the questions because I know people have got some backed up, and I've got some stuff to talk about as well. But I want to, see if I haven't clarified anything so far that they still need to know about. That's in there. So fire away, Johnny Million.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry. I was just reading the chat. So this is from Sherry P. Could this be a ploy by Putin to save face? Got to pull out of Ukraine to defend the motherland sort of thing?
No. I mean, I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but it's been really interesting watching people try to wrap their head around what's going on. Like there's a mystery to it. Like there's the conspiracy through it. No, this is what it looks like on the face of things. This is a guy who
what it says on the tin.
A lot of power. He was given a lot of power. He was given a lot of leeway. Putin pit his subordinates against one another in the hope of finding somebody that he could pin this on, and it's gotten way out of hand, and now things are spiraling out of control. I don't think there's any depth to it more than that. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I think this is legitimately happening the way it's happening. And it was in many ways predictable. I know because I predicted it. So,
see, this is why Phil and I get along.
This is happening, folks. This is real. This is the Russian military having failed miserably in Ukraine, trying to find trying to find a way out, yes, but also having to wrap their heads around the fact that they are being soundly defeated in Ukraine, and they can't. It's the Russo-Japanese war. They're going to try and find somebody to the humiliating defeat. They're going to find somebody. They're going to try and find somebody to pin it on. And Putin was hoping to find somebody either on the Shoigu Gerasimov side or on the Prigozhin side to pin it on, or even the Kadyrovs. Have you seen the Kadyrovs? The Kadyrovs said they're coming to fight the Wagner guys, but we got stuck in traffic. You guys, you're in APCs. The traffic are a
there
bunch
is no
of
traffic.
Russian lot of cars. You could roll over them if you wanted to. No, I mean it's just the disintegration of control in Russia because Putin has mastered himself as the state is Putin. Putin is the state, and now he's the military adventurism that he thought genuinely, I believe, thought he could win here in Ukraine. It's been a humiliating defeat, and this is what you get. So I don't think there's a conspiracy here.
No,
I don't think there's machinations.
My favorite thing yesterday, late last night, was watching Aaron Mate and some of those guys all going, you could see them trying to crowbar this thing into their empty craniums as a psyop or as a like fifth, dimensional chess and all this stuff. And it is simply macho idiots in a match of urination between each other that blew out of control because they're violent alcoholics, the vast majority of them, and they have no raison d'etre for the activity they're engaged in, so they turned on each other, and it's a ship mutiny. It's just on a bigger deck. This has happened in the world. This is not that weird. This is the Russian military plan is now equivalent to those people who are trapped, I think, in the Canadian wilderness, and in the 1600s or whatever, and they insisted on carrying the desk with them even when they ran out of food because they'd lost their minds. And we need to be able to write down our rules for the group, so we need to bring a desk, obviously. And they left the food behind to carry the desk for a long time, and then they eventually ate each other. This is just a political version of the Donner Party that's happening. It's not a mystery, and it's not surprising if you actually believed what was happening as it happened. If you looked at it and said, yeah, this is pretty clear. These guys are yelling at each other. They're threatening each other with violence. In some cases, they're attacking each other. Of course, there's a version. This is where this is headed. The only reason they got confused is because I just don't think they will allow themselves reality. That's the only reason I can think of it. Let's grab another question before we get to the break.
I can't wait. Before you do, though, I can't wait for the tankies to melt down.
Oh, my God. It's already happening. It's already happening.
I know. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Now, this question has been asked a few different ways by many different people, so I'm not crediting just one. This is the big one, and it's what I think a lot of people thought. If Wagner wins, is that worse?
No, because I don't think Prigozhin wants to be the president of the Russian Federation. It's not in his DNA. I don't think the Russian people would accept him. They don't want him at the head of the Kremlin. They don't want him as the head of state. He's
and
not
Prigozhin is Wagner?
Yes.
Prigozhin, okay. Sorry, yeah, Prigozhin is the head of Wagner. Wagner really is Prigozhin. So if you can take out Prigozhin, Wagner kind of dissipates because they kind of idolize him. There's this loyalty thing, and if you chop off
same thing with Kadyrov.
And same thing with Kadyrov, exactly right. And arguably the same thing with the entire Russian Federation with Putin. But if Prigozhin is successful, quote unquote, whatever that is, I think the best he's going to hope for is to be Minister of Defense, or what I refer to as the Gray Cardinal, which is the guy in the background making all the puppets dance and all the machinations. Now that could be some backroom deals and smoking rooms and the room where it happens, to quote Hamilton. I know you hate Hamilton, but anyhow, no, it won't be worse. It just because there's also been this talk of like, could somebody worse than Putin come into power in Russia, and that would be worse for everybody. The Russians, having having had this period of Putin autocracy, will not look for a Putin clone, or further down the road of the autocracy and the belligerency that Putin has adopted in the last few years. They're going to want to change course because this is going to be catastrophic for them yet again. So they're not. You don't just replace Putin with a worse version of Putin. You course alter. I think that's what the Russians are going to do. I think the Russians will course alter. I don't know what it'll look like, but also in addition to that, this could get to a point where, a functioning government may not be possible. You might have, an executive branch and not judicial,
the Duma,
executive,
right?
And the Duma, not the executive in the president in the form of Putin, but the legislative in the form of the Duma, in complete and utter disarray. There might not be a functioning government. I mean, we don't know. We're in uncharted territory, and I'm not going to ruin my batting average by swinging for the outer the cheap seats. We don't know. But this is a huge deal for Russia. And think of Russia's history. They've gone through massive upheavals in the last 30 years. There are people still alive today who are in their 60s who had their lives completely upended in 91. And, this is going to get worse before it gets better for Russia. But we've talked about that in the past.
There's according
Ukraine,
to
and meanwhile, it's going to have a great old time, because who wants to be a Russian soldier right now facing an onslaught of Ukrainians while behind you, your family, your home, your nation is ripping itself to shreds? And who am I supposed to support? Am I Kremlin? Am I Prigozhin? I mean, what is... If a Ukrainian armed column is advancing on my position and I'm a Russian soldier in a trench right now, am I really going to fight with everything I've got? No. So the Ukrainians taking advantage of this is to be expected, but also they're just very smart, because
apparently this is breaking news, by the way, and we'll take a break or whatever, that Lukashenko has been in contact with Prigozhin to start what they call a pool of the first and negotiate a stand down, possibly. At the moment on the table is an absolutely profitable and acceptable option for resolving the situation with security guarantees for Wagner PMC fighters. I gotta say, I call BS. There's no way that like, you'd have to be an idiot to accept those things. They're just gonna, what are you gonna do? They'll grant you 6 weeks and then they'll push you out a window? What are you, nuts? They'd all have to leave the country. What are they going to do? Like, we'll let you flee to Africa and live there like kings with the money that we just found in your other area? Like, goofy. We'll be back right after this, by the way.
Ice pick.
Right, exactly. That's right. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. By the way, even if they negotiated a truce inside there, the Wagnerites aren't going to continue to fight in Ukraine. That's that.
No, yeah, that's done.
Right.
Yeah, no, as long as Shoigu and Gerasimov are still around, you can't have both Shoigu and Gerasimov and Prigozhin and Wagner still out there functioning.
Working together.
Even if Wagner and Prigozhin decide to quit Ukraine altogether and go down and start messing around in Africa like they do, the fact that Prigozhin has done this, and the fact that Shoigu is still in office, they're never going to, they cannot be on the same planet together at this point. They're always going to be at one another's throats.
Yeah.
So no. And also,
according to Russian media,
don't trust a thing Lukashenko says right now.
Yeah, right.
There's every chance that Lukashenko is getting ready to bug out if he hasn't already.
Where did he
make the phone call? Istanbul?
Yeah, exactly.
Did he call Prigozhin from Istanbul?
Yeah.
Because we know that his family plane flew from Minsk to Istanbul.
Yeah. The Kremlin is preparing to declare martial law as of 2 hours ago. That's, filtering through with the rest of this stuff. Russian oligarchs and politicians are leaving Moscow on private planes. Among them are Arkady Rutenberg, Vladimir Potanin, Russian Deputy Minister Denis Manturov, and other Russian media. Important stories reported. So
the rats are running from the sinking ship. Yep. Well, let's save that for when we come back, because I really want to make a point about that.
Yes, about the guys bugging out. Or
about people bugging out and martial law.
Yes, you got it.
He's just in brief. Putin has broken every contract he has made with the Russian people, which brought him into power.
Right.
And this is going to be part of it. But I want to save the rest of it for later.
Yeah.
He's done. He's toast. He is.
Yeah, I sure hope
broke
so.
Every single contract. Well, again, I'll wait for when we get back on the air.
The music's coming back out.
Okay.
20 seconds.
Thanks, Chicago.
And we're back. Are we back? Is this us? Nope, not quite yet. Oh, we're coming back in 20
seconds. I don't hear
seconds.
anything yet.
Okay.
Oh.
There it is.
Bumper's on. Hang on. We're back.
We were talking during this break about the fact that the Kremlin / Putin / wherever he is apparently preparing to declare martial law in Moscow, and then a bunch of these oligarchs and folks are on their private planes. They are getting out. There are planes flying out of Moscow. You can see them, tracking through the air. Yep. Through this. And
this is
Phil,
why I chose this painting.
Right.
This is why I chose this painting. This is a painting from Ilya Ripin, who was a Ukrainian-Russian painter in the 19th century, depicting Tsar Ivan the Terrible killing his son because he brought him bad news about the military offensive in Crimea. This is Putin. Putin is killing that which he proposes to love. Mm-hmm. And I've been saying it for a long time. But yes, I wanted to make a point, Hal, and thank you for letting me do this here. Mm-hmm. Is that we were talking about martial law being imposed in was it Moscow or Russia?
Moscow in general, but they're prepping it. But Russia in general.
Bet St. Petersburg is probably in there.
Yes.
I'll bet Yekaterinburg will probably be drawn into there. Vladivostok, all the major urban centers, I'm betting will eventually.
It does. My bad. It does
law.
not make a distinction about Moscow. It just says the Kremlin is preparing to declare martial law. Period. So yeah.
No, this will be all the major
everywhere.
All the major urban centers would be my bet.
Right.
But they might just go because look, history. This is something my Russian buddy before I came on here was telling me, is that you also have to recognize that in the vastness of Russia, generally revolutions only really happen in the major urban centers. If you look at 1917 and the Bolshevik, well, not the Bolshevik Revolution, but the revolution that overthrew the Tsar. That really only happened with a bunch of sailors who then got a bunch of other guys to join them and overthrow the Tsar in St. Petersburg. It was localized in St. Petersburg. Mm-hmm. In 1991, the overthrow of the Soviet Union was by and large done on the streets of Moscow. So, if you can control either the first capital or the second capital, and that's how the Russians refer to Moscow and Petersburg, right, then you can change the course of the country as a whole. But when you talk about martial law, and this is what I wanted to talk about coming out of the break, and I save for now.
Yeah.
Putin has broken every single contract that he made with the Russian population, with the Russian people. When he came in, he made a deal. We're not going to have the chaos of the Yeltsin years and the post-Soviet collapse. I will bring order. You might have to, have a little bit of corruption with a traffic cop or, somebody, if you want to do some business or that business, you might have to slide somebody some extra bucks, but they won't be chaos as it was under Yeltsin. Right. I will bring you back to prestige on the global stage, Putin said to his people. He's done the exact opposite. They're totally pushed out of the rest of the world, and, the trading system and travel and all the rest of it. So that's gone. But by and large, this thing of if you have to bring in martial law, it means you are no longer in control. And Putin promised control. And he's let the Russian people down on that. This is just going to be more and more chipping away at Putin's prestige as the leader who's going to, the great Russian leader that will go down in history as, having saved Russia in the chaos of post-Soviet Union. It's not. I mean, I don't know when the next presidential. I was going to look this up. I don't know when the next presidential election is in Russia.
Right.
But he's either deposed or he's voted out.
Right.
And voted out is tricky because democracy in Russia is not existent. It's all
exactly.
But if you really, nobody's going to vote for Putin. And if the vote then comes back that he has 110% of the vote, people are going to be like, excuse me now?
Apparently that, by the way.
I saw it in Volotny Square.
Yeah. 11, let's see, about 5 minutes ago, a post came up that said a Wagner convoy of about 5,000 soldiers is approaching Moscow. Wagner has an S-300 air defense system with them. They are bringing in, anti-aircraft stuff and huge, beyond the APCs, they've got, all kinds of military vehicles as well. Pretty crazy. And you saw Putin's statement earlier today, I'm sure. He made, Putin finally came out and made his appeal, and he tied it all to 1917, during World War I,
Yeah.
when he goes, intrigues, bickering, and politicking behind the back of the army and the people turned out to be the greatest catastrophe. The destruction of the army and the state, loss of huge territories, resulting in a tragedy and a civil war. Russians were killing Russians, brothers killing brothers. The beneficiaries of that were the various political chevaliers. I love that he threw that in there. Of fortune and foreign powers who divided the country and tore it into parts. We will not let this happen again. We will protect our people and state from any threats, including internal betrayal. What we're facing is exactly a betrayal. So the idea that they're just going to like, you know what? Yeah, time out. We're fine. Just turn around and go back and everything will be as normal again. I promise. I'll forget, we'll forgive and forget, is an absurdity. I repeat, and he goes, I repeat, and any internal mutiny is a deadly threat to our state, to us as a nation. It is a blow against Russia, against our people, and our actions to defend the fatherland from such a threat will be brutal. That doesn't sound unlike somebody who's ready to kiss and make up in that regard. Johnny, we have time for another question before we get to the break. Yeah.
All right, so here's one. It's kind of a short but big question. What does this mean for Crimea?
I don't think this. Well, it changes things for Crimea only in the sense that I think Ukraine's military is now just going to be dominant.
Yes,
we have been looking at a slow and steady. And again, Hal, you and I have talked about this many times. This offensive has heretofore been about moving the ball down the field. You might get 2 or 3 yards on this play, 5 yards on that, but as long as you're moving the ball down towards the end zone, eventually you're going to get there. The end zone being Crimea, or at least the land bridge connected to Crimea. That may change swiftly. Because if you are a Russian soldier in a trench right now and you've got a civil war fomenting back home, are you really going to stand up and give your all to fight against a Ukrainian onslaught? No, you're not. You're going to bail and start heading the other direction back home to deal with a worsening situation there. So I think the potential is there for Crimea being regained, brought back into Ukraine, reclaimed sooner than had been anticipated. It was going to happen eventually, I believe, but it might happen sooner because the Russians might fall apart. Again, this is something I said since the beginning of the war. Nothing happens. Everything
and
happens.
Then it all happens, right? Then it's a big shock to everybody, just like 91. That's why there's so many parallels that people are making. I think you've seen them about now and 1991 when the USSR fell. That it was like, we know they're on their heels, but how this could go for decades, I guess, and then all of a sudden, overnight, everything changes. The similar thing seems to be happening, and in sort of related news to that. And in the question people were asking, Ukrainian forces have taken control of several positions near Krasnohorivka, which Russia has held since 2014. They have finally crossed into territory that was part of the Donbass held by the Russians since 2014. We have moved past reclaiming the territory since last year and now moved into reclaiming territory that they have held since 2014. That is a major turning point, and this was before all this. This was earlier yesterday, before all this stuff started happening. So this will accelerate to some degree. And once they get past the mined areas, which are largely the front area, get around it or over it or through it, it will be a much faster element. The question, I have a question for Phil, and he can think about it during the break as well, is in its relation to, let's say, we've got a relatively failed state and all this kind of stuff. To one of the first concessions that the new Russian government, as it's being formed, while it's on its heels to keep itself from being overrun by, every one of its neighbors, not us, but we'll talk about Kazakhstan on the way back, what their response was, very, very Kadyrov-like in their response, that will they just say, we're going back to the 91 borders. We're moving our people out. Everybody out, and just do it like that. In a process of, we've got too many fish to fry in our own country. Get everybody out of there, because we can't do this and have enough security in our own country at the same time. Does that happen in a minute? Now, and you'll have to answer that on the other side of the break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, talking about the Russian Civil War. Part 2. I
mean, I was back in Lviv. I was back in Lviv telling you this stuff was going to happen.
I know.
You know?
I agree.
I had a brief exchange with Malcolm today, and we both were like, I love Malcolm. He's a great guy, but he is very much like, I knew it. I predicted it. I was right. And so this was a time for me to go to Malcolm and be like, I predicted it. I was right.
Yep.
So he agreed with me. Yeah.
This is from, real quick, everybody in the chat, Phil, can you hear me? Everybody in the chat wants you to know that the Midas Touch people want to use you for updates too.
Great.
Sure. With pleasure. Yeah. We had a weird thing in the beginning of the war where it was potential that I was going to do stuff for them, and then it just kind of faded. And I don't know if it was because of.
Well,
I think it was after they met you.
Yeah. And also,
they're just like, yeah, no.
Their senses.
Yeah.
Also,
like, this is a bad idea. Did you hear him?
Oh, no.
But, it's a war. Beggars can't be choosers, But I will say that you may be transitioning into a post-war, what's the rebuilding like? What's going on here? Like, the politics of that is going to be more dense and hard to understand for people than the slapdash aspect of this friggin' ridiculous war. You know about Putin's call to
I'm done.
Yes, I know. You know about Putin talking to Tokayev, right?
Putin talking to I don't know.
Okay.
Where?
He called the Kazakh president and briefed him and said Tokayev asked him for help. And Tokayev said, "This is an internal matter for Russia." Click.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 You made your bed, buddy.
Yeah.
Time for you to lie in it.
Yep. Sorry. We would rather do business with Europeans because their check's clear. You moron. Like, let's see. Be a part of the European community where people are like, I love the dates and the culture and the stuff that comes from Kazakhstan. It's fascinating. You ever been? It's wonderful. It's a great place to travel. Versus turning into a vassal state for a decaying lunatic who wants to bleed your country dry. I don't know. Do we flip a coin or?
We're live, Hal.
Oh, well, welcome back. It's I have some questions for Phil, and one of the ones that I asked him going into this was, about Tokayev, the head of Kazakhstan, who Putin called for help, essentially. But here's what he's doing. He's shoring up allies. I'm sure he made a call to the heads of the Georgian troops and the heads of the Chechen areas that they control, and he did it in Dagestan. And you know what the response in Dagestan was? People are spraying, they've got little stencils and they're spray painting "Dagestan is not Russia" on everything. There's graffiti all over the place. It says, "Nope, we're out. You're done." And the head of Kazakhstan, who again has been playing this very smart, and Putin, you could argue, tried to threaten him at the beginning of the war, sending in those troops and going, "We're in control of your security, not you." He replied when Putin asked for help, "This is an internal matter for Russia," and ended the call.
Yep.
And
so it goes with empire.
Yep.
And so it goes with empire. That's it.
According to a lot of European BBC News, they're saying that the Wagner Group is returning. They're turning back from Moscow right now.
Are they? Is that what the deal from that might be the Karashenko whatever kind of thing? Yeah, or Lukashenko. Son Hal Sparks, definitely follow Philip Bittner. He's a veteran. Oh, Malcolm Nance is touting your stuff right now. Yeah, it's very nice of him.
And I'm a big supporter of Malcolm as well. It's interesting that they say that they're turning around and coming back. If they hold, really what it is if they hold Rostov, if they entrench themselves in Rostov, they could really screw things up for the Russian military efforts in Ukraine, which is kind of their bargaining chip in many different ways. Or as long as they hold that, that they can exert influence. To a lesser extent, Voronezh, because that's close, that's within spitting distance of Moscow. But I'm not terribly surprised that they're turning away from the capital, because that was going to be a fight. That was going to be if indeed this is true, and if indeed this is not just some sort of feint or temporary withdrawal. Okay, I'm digesting this as we speak. I think the other thing is also that, if they were going to go for Moscow, it would have been a proper full-on fight.
War.
And yeah, it would have been that would be civil war. So you can perhaps, and also in addition to that, it indicates to me that Prigozhin knows that the military forces in Moscow, unlike in Rostov, are not just going to hold open the door. Because he came into Rostov more or less unopposed, with some clashes. I mean, he shot down a helicopter. I know there were some gunfights, but by and large, he went into Rostov-on-Don unopposed. Clearly, he thinks that going for Moscow would not be unopposed. And that's this looming question is like, is the rank and file soldiers of the Russian military going to side with Putin and Shoigu?
Right.
Or are they going to,
We're seeing
to
that
say, no, Prigozhin is
breaking
successful?
Breaking news in relation to the Lukashenko agreement. Prigozhin has issued a statement saying it's over, which, again, if you listen to what he's saying, it's crazy. He goes, they were going to dismantle PMC Wagner. Remember, he had to take his paperwork and show up, and this was a urination contest between him and Shoigu, and he showed up with the paperwork at the building, and he was rejected, and the idea was that they were going to just turn them into they were just going to cut them up and not let them exist. And
they brought charges against them.
That's right. He goes, we came out on June 23rd to the March of Justice. In a day, we walked to nearly 200 kilometers away from Moscow. In this time, we did not spill a single drop of blood of our fighters. Yeah. Now the moment has come when blood may spill. That's why, understanding the responsibility for spilling Russian blood on one of the sides, we are turning back our convoys and going back to field camps according to the plan. So I think that speaks well to your Rostov-on-Don idea, that they are going to maintain their power structure. Because, again, like, there's just no way that Putin lets this sit. The dude had to flee the Kremlin. What are you talking about? And there's no way these guys go back to fighting in Ukraine or trust the Ministry of Defense is going to give them stuff or not strike them again. Are you nuts? Like, this seems more like a bait from a bait from Prigozhin than it is, and Lukashenko, than it is a tactic by Putin at this point. But again, this is just like, it's not that surprising.
I can't see Shoigu and Prigozhin existing on the same planet together. Right. I made a joke at the end of the last segment there about Trotsky getting an ice pick in the back of his head in Mexico after the Bolshevik Revolution. The problem in many ways with Russia's power structures, you can't let an opponent just be out there in the wind, because eventually, somebody of his supporters or something, he'll come back and that's why they kill spies who have defected to the West. No, I could see him turning around from Moscow, knowing that a fight in Moscow would be horrific for everybody.
Yeah, he's going to die. He'll die doing that.
Right. He will lose that
no
fight.
way.
25,000 soldiers. 25,000 soldiers will not take Moscow. Not enough.
No.
So I can see him turning away from Moscow, but I don't see him changing his position. I think and again, this is early days. This is just my thought off the top of my head. My bet is he falls back to Rostov, which is you cannot conduct the war in Ukraine without Rostov. It's just it's where everything is launched from. So he falls back to Rostov, which he still has got apparently left. There's a unit of Wagner guys, a sizable unit of. This is what my Russian buddy told me. My Russian journalist buddy. He said there's a division, or there's a group. By that I mean division. A group that's been divided off from the main group, that's been left in Rostov, a group that's left in Voronezh, and then they were marching on to Moscow. I think maybe they fall back, realizing that perhaps they overextended, and this was a risky thing for Prigozhin to do. Fall back to Rostov so that you have something to negotiate with.
Right.
That's your chip. That's your bargaining chip.
And Shoigu, where is he?
That bargain.
Right.
Well, Shoigu, we haven't seen.
Right.
To my knowledge, we haven't seen since this whole dust up. We heard stories of Gerasimov getting out of Rostov like in a car racing to Moscow with Wagner guys, coming to the outskirts of Rostov. He was like, got in a car and got out of there. That's the prevailing story. But they fall back to Rostov, the military hub, the military headquarters, the command and control for the Ukrainian war. They hold that territory, and then they start negotiations on how it ends. Now, what that negotiation ends up with, I don't know. Again, I just can't
Well, and
see.
then at the same time this word is coming out that Lukashenko has talked to Prigozhin, and arguably it's one of those things where this might have been the plan all along: scare the crap out of Putin, get what you want, hold on to this, take over the military. He becomes the military head, and then somebody else is like, whatever, it doesn't matter. But according to, just 2 hours before, Putin put out a statement apparently that he wants to kill Prigozhin and is ready to grant amnesty to all Wagner PMC fighters who liquidate him. That was 2 hours ago.
Wagner is Prigozhin. Prigozhin is Wagner.
Yes.
If you get rid of Prigozhin, and you give amnesty to the fighters who have been, alongside Wagner, that would. Then basically you return to a bit of a status quo, but again, with a deeply damaged Putin. There's no scenario where Putin comes out of this unscathed. So we'll see. I just, falling. He knew he couldn't take Moscow.
Moscow, right? So now with 25,000 guys,
he's
right?
Falling back. No, not with 25,000 guys. So now he's falling back on Rostov. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think look, I've had many people tell me today that they think Prigozhin rolled the dice. He took too high of a risk, and he's going to pay for it. That there's no way out of this for Prigozhin either. So we will say, I can't. He will have to go out at the very least.
Okay,
he's
so
going to be in exile out of
there's
Russia.
more information about Lukashenko's offer. He apparently, and this is, again, where this is coming in hot, so we're not 100% sure the details of this, but he proposed that if Prigozhin quits his Moscow campaign, the leadership of the Ministry of Defense will resign, and Prigozhin will be able to focus on projects in Africa. What did I say? Bug out of the country and go kill Africans. That will let you do your favorite thing. And you can go make money killing Africans, and that'll be that. And you'll basically exile. We'll give you lots of money in exile if you just stop killing. Which means he's going to take all those Wagner fighters with him, the 6,000 base fighters that are actually trained, not the ones that have been assigned to him. And those guys will get dropped into the Ministry of Defense. And then what happens? Putin puts the next two idiots in the Pez dispenser in charge of the Russian fighting force? What are you talking about? Prigozhin responded, realizing all the responsibility of the fact, okay, we saw that part. There is no way this dude survives if he just bugs off to Africa.
No, yes, eventually he will fall out of a window.
Yes.
But I also see I see the sense in not making him Minister of Defense, because then that gives him he benefits from this massive incursion, which is going to screw up the war effort, and Putin is, I'm sure, furious at him. So he's not going to be Minister of Defense. So get him out of the country, send him to Moscow, or send him to Africa, or let him go to Africa, and then he gets what he wants in that Shoigu and Gerasimov. So he gets to save face there. Putin survives, not as bad as it could have been, because it's the Boyar thing that I keep going back to. If he is seen to be the one in control of all these these guys who are running around doing their own thing, and everybody's so chaotic and Russian against Russian. Well, I'm the one who's going to broker this. I mean, because Putin will eventually take credit for this. Lukashenko will not get credit for this.
No.
He will have done what I say happens in these fights between boyars, and he will be able to scapegoat. Actually, in many ways, maybe this is the best option for Putin, because he gets to scapegoat both Shoigu and Prigozhin.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, I still think Putin comes out of this looking bad, because it's sheer and utter chaos.
Yeah,
And
there are troops in the air.
That wouldn't happen anymore.
Right. There are troops in the air flying from Ukraine to Moscow right now, apparently, to protect the city, because this was all happening. There is not a thread of live and let live in Vladimir Putin, and I don't no. Prigozhin can't be that stupid. He has to know that this has got to be a feint, a fallback, or he's got another plan. Because if he doesn't get rid of Putin at this point, he's done. This is like a mafia movie at this point. Crazy. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. The news is happening as we do the show. Very exciting today. Lots going on. And by the way, all of it, good news for Ukraine. We'll be back.
Jeez, oh Pete's.
Yeah.
Here's my phone. I better take a look.
Yeah, they shot down an airplane, AN-75 transport aircraft. A transport aircraft. Jesus.
Ooh.
Yeah. Again, this whole we'll shrug it off. Everybody live and let live. Go do your thing in another country. You don't have to fight anymore. We'll handle it from here. What the hell?
Oh God. I mean, I still think this is a huge development for the Ukrainians.
Oh yeah. This is amazing. And by the way, chat room, we love you. Hi. Sorry, this is a lot happening all at once, and I don't want you to... The Wagner Group shot down a Russian transport plane about 3 hours ago. And we're supposed to believe that Lukashenko, who fled to Turkey and made a phone call to Prigozhin from there, talked him down and said, and basically, if he's not going to be the head of the Russian military, who is? Yeah.
Who are they going to replace Gerasimov with? Who are they going to replace Shoigu with? I mean,
why did Prigozhin say he was marching on Moscow if he knew he couldn't win there? Well, part of it is that he was testing the fear of Vladimir Putin, that how many of his own forces, of Putin's own forces, would turn with Prigozhin and side with him, and it looks like a lot. Yeah. And the bluff worked. So that might be why he thought he could take it.
That's why he thought he could. He thought he could march into Moscow unopposed, and I think he found out that wasn't going to be the case, and so he realized he'd gambled too much, so he's headed back to Rostov.
Well, yes, agreed. Mm-hmm. And then the idea that he's just going to kind of whatever. After the response to the Belgorod thing.
Happy song playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Here we are. So, obviously, a lot going on as we've learned. I think that there is going to be a piece of good news from this, is that a direct firefight between the Wagner guys and, outside of Moscow would have resulted in just massive casualties. That because, Putin's regulars don't have either the soldiers or the means to stop it, they would have had to resort to large, violent, artillery strikes and bombs from the air and, that kind of stuff, which if you remember, remind everybody, if you could, Phil, the Chechen theater hostage crisis. Remember that under Putin?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where the Chechens, and I want to say something like 2003 or something like that, infiltrated a theater, a concert hall, and the Russians' response to it was to gas everybody. They gassed the entire concert hall. They were not very precise with their mixing of the narcotics that they used, or the gas, the agent that they used, and they killed everybody. They killed a whole chunk of people, Chechens, concert goers, all the rest of it, because it's there. If you look at if everything is a nail, then a hammer is the only tool you use. Not only that, but also we know that the Russians during that concert, they came in, they found Chechens who were still alive, and they shot them. They executed them, headshots. Which sounds tough and mean, and don't mess with the Russians. It's dumb.
Yeah.
If they were still alive, get them out, get them to a medical center, and then press them for information. But no, Russia just I don't like you, kill you.
Yep. It's kind of a scorched earth. They have a scorched earth attitude towards things like this, especially when they're violently embarrassing. And so and there's footage now of Lukashenko. I don't know where he is per se, but he apparently is. He's at one of the barriers.
Is there a guy with a big shawarma thing? And there's they're all wearing fezzes.
Nope.
And
he's standing. He's just standing. He's wearing all military gear and a bulletproof vest, and he's giving the thumbs up to a bunch of lines of cops, basically saying, "You guys won't have to have the Wagner guys roll over you today," and they're all applauding. And but that's the current state of the negotiation. That said, here's what I think we can say unequivocally. Based on this, Wagner is out in Ukraine. There is no situation where the Wagner group is fighting alongside regular Russian forces anymore. And considering they were arguably the biggest push force, the only push force in the entire Russian military column, that's a big plus for Ukrainians. Secondly, the trust back and forth, they're going to shift over some of these guys, I guess the prisoners who were working under Wagner, who they were blaming their stuff on the paramilitary guys, into the regular military groups and into the regular Russian army. That's not going to be fun. And again, what do you think right now if you're a Russian soldier and you're fighting going in, which way is your gun pointing right now? It's got to be maddening.
No, I think this is the happy ending. Here's the happy ending. This means Ukraine, I think, we are looking, hopefully, at the beginning of the end of the Ukraine war. I'm now maybe, again, people criticize me for anticipating that too frequently. But first off, I don't, my position on this, Hal, Russia has no way of winning here. That's just a starting point.
Right.
Regardless of these other factors, Ukraine will never submit to Russian dominance ever again. But I do think that this infighting, because this isn't over. This is not over. Even if he pulls back to Rostov and they make some sort of agreement, you're off to Africa or whatever, there is still this issue of Russians will no longer, because Russians, they get, there's basically one information source, and that's the state. You can't ignore this.
Yeah.
So there's clearly friction internally within Russia, and that's going to cause the Russian population to also go, well, what is this friction? Why is there this friction? And I've been promised peace and stability from you, and this is not peace and stability. This was supposed to be a short military operation. You've had 2 mobilizations of 2.5, and you've got we're on the verge of a civil war sort of thing. What the F is going on? This is nothing but bad news for Putin, nothing but bad news for Russia. It hobbles their military war effort. Holding Rostov hostage is not going to work well for Prigozhin or for Putin. And I think all of this means that we see Ukraine. I don't want to jinx it, but making good strides. And you know, I think it's the writing's on the wall. Eventually, Ukraine is victorious, and Russia will have to look in the mirror and do the hard work that it's had to do for centuries.
Think about how embarrassing the Belgorod attack was just a couple of weeks ago, and this was
multiply it by like a good 20 or 50. I don't want to say 100, but it's like this is a massive thing.
Yes,
you know,
and
he's not in control, and it shows Putin's not in control.
Right, especially because Lukashenko is the guy who negotiated this, this kind of temporary stand down.
The Tsar cannot get his hands dirty. The Tsar cannot be brought down to human level. He has to be above it all. This is his whole mystique, is that it's all these guys fighting amongst themselves below the Tsar. I mean, if only the Tsar could, if he could just get these people to behave properly, as if he's like not involved already. You better bet that Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin has been on the phone to every single, power broker that he's got in his sphere of influence. And he's still going to come up lacking in this.
Kazakhstan told him to go pound sand. Kazakhstan told him to go pound sand. So did Iran. Apparently, he called Iran, the leaders of Iran, and briefed them on this and looked for their support. And none was there to be had. And eventually, it was the idea was Lukashenko bartering this deal to get rid of Shoigu, and maybe that was enough for him right now, but then who replaces them? And again, they're not going to be fighting alongside. I don't know what kind of an idiot he would have to be to take them at their word. But
Wagner's not going back into Ukraine. There's no way. No way. They don't. There's no trust. And also, there's a lot of munitions around in Ukraine. If Yevgeny Prigozhin decides to go back into Ukraine, there's every chance in the world that oops, I dropped this hand grenade. Sorry. And that's it for him. So, I mean, could still happen in Africa as well. This is not over. This is still in a very volatile, very unpredictable.
Well, the Chechens just arrived in the Rostov region, apparently, as sort of backfill / flanking maneuver, and that was part of the threat. I think that that Lukashenko was maybe making.
Entirely possible. Yeah.
Yep. But that doesn't mean that's how it's going to shake out, and it might mean that they, in Rostov, they have a meeting of the minds. Good Lord. While Wagner is trying to overthrow,
or they get into a conflict, or they get into a Kadyrov. There's no love lost between Kadyrov and Prigozhin.
Right.
There was a time they were buddy, but I think those days are long gone. No, this is still very volatile. I think this is going to get worse before it gets better for all sides involved in Russia.
Yeah.
It's great for the Ukrainians, but it's still it's too volatile, and I don't think this ends well for anybody. And it's
we'll watch it. We're going to watch it play out. We're at the end of the show, and we're seeing
inevitably we are heading to a place where Putin is either completely lame duck or he's out of power. It's inevitable at this point. He is too damaged.
Yeah, I like the political fallout will be the thing we will be watching over the next couple of days, and they're taking the day off in Monday because they're expecting it. We'll see if this it buttons it up nicely, or if it's just another bad mile marker. Thanks so much, Philip, for joining us today. Thanks everybody in the chat for coming in with your questions. And Johnny Million, thank you for farming our questions and the like. And we will see you guys next week where I have no doubt it will seem like 100 years have passed in the history of Russia because of what will go on this week. I'll be covering it as well during the week on my show. Wednesday, I'm at Flappers for all the Patreon, patreon.com/HalSparks. You guys get to watch that show and for free and all that stuff. And we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
The chat's hoping you guys can stick around, but I cannot. I've got a ton of questions for you, though.
You do? Okay.
I do. Sure.
Well, let's see. You can put them in the. You can copy and paste them into the chat if you want.
Go ahead and do it.
That'll do it. And then I will give me 1 second, and I will move him around. And ding. Go back to here, and hold on. Hold on. See you later, Johnny Million. You're wonderful. I'll say bye to
everybody. See you, Johnny. Good to see you, buddy.
Yep. There you go. And then he's going to pop in there. I just wanted to be able to say goodbye. And then I'm going to switch which guest is in there in a second. Let me grab him over here. Okay. And then I'll put him in there. And so I can wink. Okay. And then we'll turn on Johnny's name, and he can go do his thing. And there's Phil. Clink, clink. And then we transition over, and la-di-da, here we are. So lots going on. And then also, let me see if I can do this.
And I'm just checking some stuff here, so you do your thing, and let me know when you're ready.
Yep. Let me go to Toother, and I got to take you out of the second guest spot. Good. Okay. Take that out of there, and then I'll be able to show the screen that we're seeing as well in this stuff, so we can show people what's going on over there as well. And transition. There we go. So, obviously crazy stuff. Opposing the Chechens against Wagner is the worst possible scenario for Russia. Again, the Chechens are going to go back and fight. They'll turn right around and head back to fighting in Ukraine, but they've been pulled off the front line for a good, for this. That doesn't help.
No. Oh man, yeah, look at that. Is that people flooding out of Rostov, or
this is no, that's
the cars
that's
on the road.
Another thing in French. Yeah, there you go. Hold on 1 second. I'll show you. These are the Chechens coming in. This is the Chechens coming in into the Rostov area on the same road that that they came in on. Let me do something real quick. I'm gonna transition you over.
Oh my God.
So I can, like the idea that, like, okay, nothing to see here. Everything go back to normal. Is just bananas. I'm gonna start marching. I will draw to military field camps. I don't know what that means, by the way. At least 6.
So, okay, it probably, my bet would be, it will be the same sort of situation that happened before the beginning of the war, where they pretended to have training exercises. And what they basically do is that the Russians are awful at this, by the way. When we set up, when NATO sets up a field camp, it is a city that is built out of nowhere quickly. And it's a proper city. I mean, it's like, it's built with canvas and wood and steel and, the foldable frames and all this. So it's not everything, but it's you can live there and live there pretty, you got your own water, you got your own power, all the rest of it. Russia generally, and this I've spoken to Russian soldiers about this. This is not, I'm not just pulling this out of my backside. They'll just throw you into a field. And be like, yep, here's a tent, you're good. The chow truck will come around, 8 and 1300 and 1900. Everything else, it's on you.
You're on your own. Right.
I could see that kind of situation happening. Or they could bill it within the city itself, which would stuff.
Right.
But we'll see. Look, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's, again, this is Prigozhin, I think, took risk. I think he got over his skis. I really do. I don't know yet. It's too early days, but I just talking to people and all the community of people that like pay very close attention to this, who I've been, that I know over my years of experience working in this region. And a lot of people have said to me, Prigozhin just screwed up real bad. He went way too far. He went way too far, and he can't back down from it now. And he can't, and Putin can't let him back down. You can't go back to, standard operating procedure after he threatened to.
Putin murders guys. Putin murders guys that get too high on themselves, who haven't done anything against him. You know what I mean? He gets rid of people that he thinks are just, nipping at his heels in general. So the idea that he's going to let this dude just kind of hang now is goofy.
What are some? Have you got the questions or?
Yeah. So one is how does Ukraine educate its civilians about landmines and traps? They talk about that.
They have a massive information campaign. They even have it for children, because of course, my buddy here. Come here. My buddy here.
Yes.
Patron.
The bombs. Yeah, Patron, the bomb sniffing dog. Yep.
Patron, the bomb sniffing. What is it? A Russell Terrier? I don't know, some form of terrier.
Super smart dogs.
And they have, absolutely. And they have made him into a cause celebrity, and he, there are posters of him all around Ukraine for everybody, but primarily for kids. If you see something, tell somebody, tell an adult, and they'll tell the military, and bomb disposal will come. It's not a toy, don't pick it up. That's the message that comes from Patron, but it equally also applies to adults, because Patron is kind of everywhere. He's ubiquitous. But there's also there's commercials, and there's training exercises, and it's a big deal here. Munitions, drop munitions here, and it's going to be that way for a long time as well. But in the current war environment, that's kind of how they're educated.
Right. Somebody's asking about, does this mean sorties by Russian Air Force on Ukraine will stop? I
mean,
pause, maybe?
It'll affect it. I don't know how much, but it'll affect it, sure. And also, by the way, if because of this chaos, Ukraine is actually able to make greater strides in retaking territory, that means that their air cover gets extended. They've been complaining about not getting longer range weaponry, and they're right. But if they're able to actually move like HIMARS or Patriots or different anti-aircraft systems, or Gepards, or whatever, all the different anti-aircraft systems they currently have, which don't have the long range that they had hoped for. But if you can have disruption in the Russian lines and move those anti-aircraft closer to the 91 borders, you can control your airspace better. You can control the airspace over Crimea, and your armed forces can do more retaking of land. So I don't think the Russians will necessarily, I don't think they'll massively decrease their air sorties, because they just can't stop, because they're in combat operations. But the Ukrainians might be able to move up their anti-aircraft to a position where it's just too dangerous for a Russian plane to get into Ukrainian airspace. That would be pretty good. That would be a good development.
And again, anytime you're in a situation where you're having to pull people off the battlefield in a situation where you're already on your heels is terrible. And if you're having to do it to defend your own cities, it's ridiculous. The idea that this can be spun into a good thing or just let slide is crazy. But also, this is what I was talking about earlier about the Dagestan without Russia is being spray painted on stuff in Dagestan. And I wanted to.
Do you know what else is there? Is there's a mountain. Okay, so Dagestan identity as a Caucasus nation. Unlike the rest of Russia, which is not mountainous, and they're not mountain people. and the Dagestanis are. They're a group of people that live in the Caucasus Mountains, and then the half crescent moon is an Islamic symbol there. So Dagestan as an Islamic republic, close to what used to be the Persian Empire.
That's a big cultural distinction.
We're not Christian. We're not Orthodox Christians like you Russians. We're Islamic.
Right.
So that's a big message to Moscow. Yeah.
Yep. And by the way, during this whole thing, this is the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation has withdrawn troops from the front line in many directions and sent them to Moscow, according to Russian media. At the same time, some of the units are removed from their position and go to support PMC Wagner. So there were a bunch of guys who bugged out to support, just to leave the front line. Again, I don't know, how the hell do you go back to normal after something like this? Are you kidding me? If you did, like, the idea that you're a strong leader or that you can handle stuff like this would just be embarrassing. Lukashenko negotiates effectively what is a temporary ceasefire, and you just let the dude who came in and was going to take your capital from
and Lukashenko is such a little toady.
Yeah.
It's just it's embarrassing in so many different ways. Oh no, this is
like, there's no reset button in this. This is just goofy.
No, there's no reset button. There's no advantage for Russia in the war effort. There's no good look that Putin can put a spin on this. I don't think. He's maintained his above it all status as czar. But he's still brought great disruption and fear and chaos to Russia. It's kind of hard to say that you didn't know if you're the czar this particular instance. So we saw what happened to Nicholas II when he got involved directly in military operations. He ended up getting shot.
What do you tell these guys? They tell these guys who just dug up the road in front of their locals. The guy lives there. That guy in that bulldozer, he lives nearby. The Russians sent him out to destroy the road, and then he's got to pour it all back today? You're kidding me, right? Like, and again, the idea that, Biden's such a weak guy, but Putin's strong, and that's the thing about a strong leader, and his strong leaders are strong, and they strong a lot. And then this stuff happens, and you're like, what are you even going on about? This is lunacy. Who thinks this is a working, functioning government at this point?
I remember being in. So I have been somebody who has been trying to spread the word that I think that Putin is not nearly as secure as he thinks he is. And I'm talking about going back years. When I was in France working for Fox after the Bataclan nightclub bombing, they sent Geraldo Rivera in. And Geraldo and I were in the common room at the news center that we took over in a hotel. We made a conference room into a news center, and I started talking with Geraldo about Putin, and I said, and this was back in Bataclan, so this is 2015, somewhere between 2015 and 2018 would be my bet. It's more like 16, whatever. Anyhow, I said to him, I said, I don't know if it's going to happen today or tomorrow or somewhere down the road, but ultimately Putin is in real trouble. He can't appoint his successor, and until he does, he's going to have to keep this kind of like autocratic, screws-on approach to governance. And Geraldo was like, I talk to people all the time, and no. I said, well, we'll see. Look, I'm going to get out my crystal ball. I'm going to make a
prognostication.
Prognostication. There we go.
Yep.
Even though I'm risking my batting average, this only goes one way for Putin from now on. We are now on an inevitable road that only goes to one destination, and that destination is Putin is deposed. And he faces consequences for what he's done to Russia over the last 3 decades. and it will not end well for him. But the most important thing to recognize is that we are on a collision course. It cannot be diverted. Putin will lose power over the
This,
war
by the
in
way,
Ukraine. He will.
yeah, the video I'm showing right now is Wagner Mercs in Rostov who have just said, boys, we're going home. We did it. And people are taking pictures with them. Like this is not the image that Putin wants people to see. They're flying their flag, they're clapping. The locals have come around shaking their hand, saying they're for them, supporting what they did.
To put it in American terms, these guys fought the deep state and they won.
Right.
They won. Ostensibly, if it's true that Shoigu and Gerasimov lose their jobs over this,
right,
then it can be spun by Prigozhin and his ilk, and maybe even adopted by Putin himself. We'll have to wait and see about that. But we fought these guys who have embroiled us in a stupid war on false pretense, and we fought the deep state and these corrupt, malign actors within the Ministry of Defense who are more about lining their pockets than they are about fighting wars are going to be expelled, and we won. And that's how we can walk away from this with some sense of dignity. That might be good for public consumption. In the halls of power in Russia, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are sharpening their knives.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Night of the Long Knives is right around the corner. This is, by the way, in response to all those people who are glad-handing the Wagner guys, the Kremlin and whomever, they put out, like, they're doing a lot of this kind of stuff. Like, on the side of this arena, it says, we are all, let me translate it. We are all Russians. We are all one people. We are fighting one external enemy. We believe in the Russian people and our president. Jesus Christ. Can you imagine that again, Blackwater attacks the Pentagon and Joe Biden has them put on the outside of the, I don't know, the fucking Washington Generals arena.
Yeah, the Kennedy Center.
The Kennedy Center. We support Joe Biden and Americans stand together against these
thirsty much.
Get out of here.
No, don't worry. Everything's fine. It's you know what it is? It's Sergeant Drebin in front of the fireworks display.
Totally.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Meanwhile, Telegram outages. Bam, and then bang, right around this when Lukashenko and they announced this pullback and all this kind of stuff, Telegram just shuts down, basically. 86.
There was all these jokes today. There have been all these jokes in the last 24, 36 hours. Okay, so when the Soviet Union fell apart, there was about a 24-hour period of time when they had taken Gorbachev custody. They'd taken him. The KGB and the Soviet had taken Gorbachev and arrested him down in Sochi, and for about 24 hours, suddenly without no warning, no nothing, no explanation, all the channels were just showing Swan Lake, the ballet Swan Lake.
Sure.
It's just on
Black Swan Lake,
a repeat.
right?
Yeah, on a repeat because they didn't know. I mean, what do you do? What do you go on television and say? So so there's been all these jokes now about well, no, this is really getting bad when they start playing Swan Lake.
Right.
So I mean,
we have other questions. Somebody was asking about Navalny being freed if Prigozhin gets in. I think no, because he's not going to hand the country over to Navalny. Prigozhin, he knows Navalny, even with what ethics he does have. As certainly somebody who's superior to Putin on so many fronts, isn't going to be okay with Prigozhin. He's not going to not let the international community go after him for war crimes or not turn him over. So I don't see that happening if that happened. Somebody was asking too,
Navalny doesn't get out, Kara-Murza doesn't get out, none of them get out.
Nope. How do you prove Putin's the real Putin from this point going forward? I agree. I think that's another story, with his doubles. We'll see.
I'm always a little bit skeptical about his doubles.
Sure.
I think that's a little bit kind of people kind of jump on
a little overblown.
A little bit more fervor.
Here's one of the images.
Too much fervor.
Here's one of the images. This is coming from a driver in the Rostov area. This is one of the images that I would say point to the fact that it's going to be hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. This guy's driving along, and this happens. Look at that. Boom. That guy, luckily, is alive. You can see him right there in his sideways car. That is, you don't just kind of go back to normal after that kind of stuff in your country.
Events like that tend to change it. Events like that tend to change your life.
Yeah. And I remind everybody that also
from experience.
Yes. And again,
I remember pretty much every firefight I've ever been in. I remember pretty vividly.
Okay. Here's the details. Prigozhin was offered to abandon the idea of going to Mexico in response. They had offered security guarantees for Wagner PMC. They also made a promise to resolve the issue.
Did they really say Mexico? They were going to send him to Mexico?
No, Moscow.
Oh, Moscow.
Yeah.
I misheard.
Going to Moscow. That's still too Trotsky.
Too Trotsky. Yeah. Too close to home.
And that was a warning. You didn't realize. They also made a promise to resolve the issue of Shoigu and Gerasimov, according to Russian media. Resolve the issue. That doesn't mean. Last we heard, they were stepping down because of it. And by the way, just in case anybody also thinks that the Wagner guys are at all good guys, this is the guy who was leading. This is Dmitry Utkin. He's the guy who was leading the troops that would have gone to Moscow on behalf of Prigozhin. He's the on the ground commander.
Like second
he's second in command. Those are Nazi lightning bolt tattoos, like a Nazi collar.
They are.
And there's a Nazi crest right here. The bird that the eagle that Hitler flew on the top of all their flagpoles. So just in case, but anyways, back to, but we got to denazify Ukraine. Yeah, and he's the guy to do it. That's who they sent to denazify Ukraine. I trust him. Why wouldn't you? Astra is still funding the sins. Oh, gosh. Yeah. They're still putting out the fires from this stuff. Yeah, this is the oil depot in Voronezh. Hold on.
Voronezh. Where they blew it up to deny him access to, I believe it's aircraft fuel. It's aircraft fuel. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. But if it's in an airport that happened.
Yeah. The Russians bombed their own airport to destroy the fuel.
Deny him fuel. Which may have good. Again, going back to one of our viewers asked, is there a conspiracy behind this? What's the real truth of what's happening here? One of the things that happens in war is that the unpredictable happens.
Yes.
The old saying goes that every battle plan is fine until first contact with the enemy. Mm. So Prigozhin may have thought he had the wherewithal to get to Moscow. Maybe he thought the troops would welcome him. Maybe he thought he would pick up ammunition and fuel and supporters along the way. We don't know.
Maybe the roads being busted were enough to stop them and slow them down enough for reinforcements to show up.
Yeah, the dump trucks being brought out to create barricades. There's all sorts of things that I think once again, to use another analogy, once the Rink recognized that this was not going to work, he would lose the Battle of Moscow. It would be catastrophic for all involved, and cascade into something that who knows what would have happened. And that's probably why he turned away, because he got out over his skis. This was not smart. This was not smart on his part. And now he's locked in.
Unless it works out that Putin eventually gets deposed and this is part of his strategy and he thinks it's going to work and it's so precarious that he knows it. But the idea that he has to take this, the bluff itself did a lot. But I think he's going to get killed.
Unless he's somebody who loves Prigozhin, is brought in to be president of the Russian Federation in the Kremlin, which ain't going to happen. Mm-hmm. He's still in the same predicament. He has still betrayed, in many people's eyes, the war effort. So, I am convinced, and I will stand by it, the road is inevitable for Putin that he loses his hold on power because of the Ukraine war. And it's inevitable. Prigozhin's fate is far less determined, but I would be willing, if I was a betting man, and I took those odds, because I would, that he ends up in a pine box before too long.
Right.
I think that's. I'm not as convinced of it as Putin's inevitability, but the future ain't bright for old Yevgeny. This was not a smart move.
No. And then somebody was asking, what do you think about the theory that Prigozhin wasn't actually getting shorted on ammo, but that he was saving ammo for this event? I can't see that.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe some, maybe the last couple of days, but the complaint's been going on for months.
Yeah, I mean, he's been whining about a lack of ammunition for a long, long time. So, I mean, again, I look, I fall victim to this upon occasion as well, but let's try to not look beyond what's happening on the surface here.
Right.
I mean,
it's that simple.
We can do it.
Right.
We can do it. We can speculate. We can. I myself am making this, prediction that Putin is headed for a fall, and that it's another. But that's my opinion, man. But I stand that up with experience and circumstances and knowledge, and it's not just. But sometimes, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Right.
And I think that's where we are with this. I think Prigozhin just made he was belligerent and he was furious.
You got a bunch of guys over there who are smoking their own product.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And this is, by the way, what I was showing here was this is a translated clip from earlier. This Muscovites are preparing to block the entrance of the city with dump trucks. They didn't think of loading them with soil, so they're empty trucks. One of the reasons why they burst through is because they tried this down in on the road to there, and all the trucks were empty. They didn't fill them with anything, so they just fell over. They just, as a matter of fact, they're a little top heavy because they're crap, so they knocked over. Okay, and then there's this. This is a shot of
the level of incompetence is just
At that time, the Bogoyevka checkpoint on the border of the Voronezh region, 180 RF fighters laid down their arms against the Wagners. They did not fight. They just welcomed them in. That was the whole hugs and stuff. They lined up. Now, none of those guys are armed, so I don't see a trust game happening here. It could be just the drop your arms and come out without any arms, and we won't do anything. It sounds like that could have happened as well.
These Wagner guys, let's not forget, right? These Wagner guys have been fighting since 2014.
Yeah.
They were fighting in the Central African Republic. Heck, well, we're off the radio.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
They took on the United States military. They got their asses handed to them, but they were in combat with U.S. forces, these Wagner guys. These guys are trained killers. They are dangerous guys, and they are vicious. They are battle-hardened, and they're relatively well-equipped. If you're a conscript who was just pulled out of some godforsaken Siberian town not 6 months ago, given a rusty AK-47 and a pair of fatigues and said you're a Russian soldier now, and you're facing down guys that are killers, straight up killers.
Yeah.
Are you going to go, yeah, I'll take you. And also, by the way, you're Russian, I'm Russian. No, man, screw it.
Yep.
That dog don't hunt.
Yeah, so this is from the Russian side of like their agreement about what's going on. Message from the President, Republic of Belarus. This morning, Putin briefed his Belarusian counterpart on the situation in southern Russia with the private military company Wagner. Heads of state agreed on joint actions. As the follow-up agreements, the president of Belarus, having additionally specified the situation through his own channels in an agreement with the president of Russia, held talks with the head of PMC Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Negotiations continued throughout the day. As a result, they came to an agreement on the inadmissibility of unleashing a bloody massacre on the territory of Russia. Yeah, I can see how that would be a sticking point, sure.
Yeah.
Prigozhin accepted the proposal of Lukashenko to stop the movement of armed persons of the Wagner Company on the territory of Russia and take further steps to de-escalate tensions. At the moment, an absolutely profitable and acceptable option, that's where this statement came from we heard earlier, for solving the situation is on the table, with security guarantees for Wagner PMC fighters. As previously reported also during today, the president of Belarus held 2 meetings with the power bloc of the country on this situation. So what, Lukashenko is running Russia while Putin's in hiding, according to his own dudes? Okay, well now, it remains to be seen, it remains to wait. For the words of Prigozhin, find out what's going on. Given Prigozhin's stated goals, he would hardly have agreed to stop just like that. Most likely, the main goal, the resignation of the leadership of the RF Ministry of Defense, was nevertheless achieved. In exchange for this, Prigozhin will probably either disband the PMC or transfer them to units of the Russian Ministry of Defense, leaving the post of head. Again, no. I think he's going to take his 6,000 to 10,000 main fighters with him to Africa and other places, and because why would he do? I don't know. This is stupid. Why? Yeah,
I wouldn't stay anywhere near. If I was Prigozhin, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near regular armed forces.
No.
But, this thing that the initial part of that announcement with Lukashenko. I mean, he's just so Putin keeps his hands clean. He rises above it. He's the czar above it all. And then here comes along Lukashenko acting like Chester and Hector the bulldog, you're the best, boss. You're the best.
Yeah, right.
He's such a toady. He's such a
look
toady.
Look at this. Okay, so we got this is, by the way, this is a Z account. These are the people who support Russia and all this stuff, and they are not happy. They're suspicious as shit about this.
I'm sure.
Not a word about the result of the agreements with Lukashenko, but the concessions they should follow too. Once again, everything is according to plan. The story ends, which is like them saying like, yeah, great. Now they're telling nothing to see here. That's the basic premise.
I meant to do that. The guy who walks into a rake gets smacked into his mouth. I meant to do that.
Yeah, the main thing is that the whole fairy tale circus with downsides, blocking headquarters, and airfields should lead to something. The rebel march did not appear out of nowhere. And no matter what Prigozhin says, shot down sides are already shed blood. So what he means is they shot down airplanes. They shot down a transport plane and 3 helicopters. The Wagner guys didn't shed a drop of blood, but they killed Russians in the process.
Ape is killed.
Yep, exactly. This is a message that an agreement has been reached to prevent bloodshed. After that, Prigozhin, weirdly spelling, okay, stopped Wagner's movement can only mean one thing. Prigozhin received guarantees that Shoigu and Gerasimov will at least resign. The political configuration is seriously changing. Persons associated with Prigozhin are brought to the fore. Turchak, Kovalchuk, Likachev, and Kiriyenko. And I think part of the case that's being made here is that there's a support structure of Russian oligarchs who were trying to help this happen, and they were in negotiations with him to do this. Those guys fled Moscow because maybe somebody was on to them, and they bugged out. And that was that. Fighters for PMC Wagner are loading their belongings and getting out of Rostov.
Okay.
Yeah, and then this is them getting applause.
Some field location. They'll go to some field location and set up a base camp and.
Where they bomb? What? They just bombed you, stupid. Why would you go gather in one place? That part is crazy. Yeah. Anyways, not that they're not crazy. I suppose not for nothing.
So within the space of 8 hours, Putin is going to have to step back from his support of Gerasimov and Shoigu. Mm-hmm. Which will be embarrassing for him.
Yep. Putin just thanked Lukashenko for work done. But he goes, the president of Russia supported and thanked his Belarusian colleague for the work done. Great, thanks. Great, yeah. Not great work, not good work, just done. Thanks for doing that thing that I didn't have the guts to do or the ability to do myself.
It's over though. I don't. Again, I'm still digesting all of these, as you do, this new information.
Christ.
But I still I still don't think this is over. I don't think that anybody is safe in this circumstance. Putin included. It's just.
It reminds me of that. It reminds me of that.
It's the old painting that I normally have on the wall, but I had to put this one because I think this is really Putin.
Yep.
Killing what he professes to love. The other one that I have of that painting of the Russian, Russian this thing, Russian warship, go fuck yourself.
Right.
But it's done as if it was on the Red Square. I bought that for a reason.
Yeah.
Because I genuinely believe that Russia is going to destroy itself on the back of Ukraine. It was a stupid idea to come here. It was a dumb thing to do.
There are a couple of
decimate Russia.
Absolutely, there are a couple of things. One is, all the people who are like saying that because Trump kept classified documents, some of our allies may be less likely to trust us in future because how do they know some other idiot isn't going to become president and then out them to our enemies if that person gets elected? And what if Trump gets back in? And they have a reasonable fear of that. That's been going around over here, and that's a conversation worth having. I mean, he's not going to be president again, but that's not the point. Apply that to this situation with Putin. Apply this, and because it's not just about like spies, information, or trade, but about like we're trusting you to violently protect us, either in Azerbaijan or in Sudan or in or partnerships with Iran or China. Like, how do you go and sit in that meeting again without your head in your lap? That in and of itself is frigging crazy. The second part of it is, and let me see if I can pull up a piece of this anywhere. Is that it reminds me of that Eddie Murphy in Eddie Murphy Raw when he's talking about like the argument he has with his girlfriend, and she ends it by why don't you just go to sleep? With the idea of like, yeah, just take a nap. You're tired. Why don't you just lay down for a while and close your eyes? With the idea that she's gonna stab or poison you in your sleep. That's where we are with Putin and Lucas. And I go like, why don't you just go to sleep? Right? Are you gonna nap if you're Prigozhin at this point? And by the way, they're claiming success in the revolution.
You sleep with one eye open.
Yep. They are gripping your pillow tight. They are claiming the Wagnerites are claiming the revolution was successful because they toppled the second in charge.
Yeah, we overthrew the deep state.
Yeah. Good
It's the same
Lord.
thing. And again, it's I keep banging on about this, but you can't overstate it. The Tsar as above it all. As a guy who is, everything that's wrong with the situation, it's not because of the guy in charge. It's not because of the Tsar. It's everything that circles around him.
Yeah.
Because you can't in a power structure that you have in Russia, or it's not unique, but it's where it's autocratic, monolithic. It's this vertical power structure. If the guy at the top of the power structure is responsible for everything else, then when things go south, it's his fault. That's why he's always kept above the fray. And that's part of the entire sociological makeup of Russia. It's not unique to Putin.
Yeah.
So, this, and that's why I also say I think inevitably Putin is now on a road to his ultimate demise, because you can't unring that bell. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's, once he is seen not to be above the fray and he dirties his hands, or he's seen to be manipulated by other power brokers within Russia.
Right.
That balloon deflates very quickly, and he's so screwed. He's so screwed, and I don't see a bright future for Russia for any time coming.
This is
going to be Awful.
The site that was reporting the details of the deal between the two of them on Telegram, his most recent post is the country was left by one of the richest Russian oligarchs, the owner of Norilsk Nickel, Vladimir Putin. A few hours ago, his Gulfstream G650 aircraft took off from Vnukovo Airport near Moscow to Istanbul, Turkey, right along there with Lukashenko's family. Estimated time of arrival 21:27. Given the circumstances, Putin may not be expected in Norilsk, and the question is whether he will ever return to Russia.
Yeah, Norilsk Nickel is no joke. I mean, it's it's a huge
organization,
very lucrative.
Yep.
Yeah, a very lucrative site. I've been there. It's amazing.
In the smoking rooms of the security forces, there is a rumor that Shoigu has been detained by the FSO, but none of the sources can confirm or deny it right now. As you would expect, he's been he just wanted to walk over to the window and take a quick
arrested.
look. Wow.
Yeah. Shoigu being arrested would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Be a very big deal.
Like, you're going to negotiate where your guys go home. It's not going to be the dude gets fired and is allowed to retire if you think he bombed your guys. What, does he get arrested and turned over to you so you can kill him?
I mean,
what's Prigozhin going to be okay with?
There's another thing that has to happen in this scenario is that Putin has to chuck Shoigu. Again, we go back to the Boyars.
Under the bus.
The Boyars have been fighting. Somebody has to get it in the neck for this awful, failed, catastrophic war. So, and it ain't going to be Putin, at least not to begin with. It may be an inevitability. I think it is. But he's going to try and chuck everybody else under the bus. And if Prigozhin may have risked it all, and it looks right now like he may have lost because, again, he's killed Russians, he's caused this whole thing. But if the narrative is twisted to Putin coming out and saying, you know what, Prigozhin was right, Shoigu has been lying to me and it's all his fault, and I commend Prigozhin, there is still a way to get an off-ramp, to get a
well, the problem is he said, I agree, except for the whole basis of the war thing. The basis of the war being a total lie, that there was no NATO expansion issue, all of that.
And he said some, and he said some things that were very non-complimentary towards the Tsar, and that you keep the Tsar's name out of your mouth.
Right.
Because the deal is he's above it all, but that also means you can't attack him. Because if you attack him, then you're part of the problem, and you're this.
I mean, honestly, look at this. Look at this shit.
Yeah, they just plowed right through.
I mean, I think the negotiation came.
If Shoigu gets arrested, if it's true that Shoigu gets arrested, then I think we can anticipate seeing Putin change his narrative to, Prigozhin wasn't wrong. He brought this to my attention. I'm going to pin a medal on him. Whatever it is. He might be able to squeeze out and exist for it. But again, he's still going to be seen as somebody who danced to Prigozhin's tune.
Yes.
And was influenced by Prigozhin. And that means that he survives this crisis, but in 6 months, 10 months down the road, because it's unsustainable. He has to be the big boss.
Yeah.
He has to be the potentate. He has to be the capo de capo.
You're not gonna arrest this dude for shooting down planes inside the country in an attempted coup to just force you to replace the head of the military, and you're just gonna you know what, we're good. And by the way, this is the same channel that was reporting the details of the actual deal, which turned out to be true. So as sources go, it's pretty rock solid. Was reporting earlier, PMC Wagner is already in the Moscow region. So they were negotiating from a position of weakness in terms of, Putin and Lukashenko talking to them. They were closer than people thought. They weren't, way down in Voronezh. And this is where
Voronezh is like I think it's like 3 to 5 hours, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah,
probably.
This is in Moscow.
4.
This is Moscow. These are troops laying in wait by the side of the road. That's not something you think it's going to take a day to get there. That's not something that happens in that case. Good Lord. And then this is, I think, that other bombing that happened.
And that's Moscow. That's the capital, man.
Yes. Like, are you?
Yeah.
And here's the column. They paused the column during the negotiations, so they were all parked on the side of the road, which I'm sure the pucker factors. No.
Nobody
there they are coming in. Off. And then there's Lukashenko's family plane where he flew his family out of the country while this took place because he didn't have a tremendous amount of faith that it was going to work out. And then here's the other guys bugging out.
All the transponders coming out of Moscow in the last few hours.
Oh my God. Amazing. Yeah. So hold on. Let me take this over here, right here, and this will. This is several business jets from Moscow to St. Petersburg all at once. Apparently, the elites are leaving Moscow. Yeah, they're all the ones that are aligned with Putin probably bugged out along with him, and the other ones that weren't, that were on the Prigozhin side, left the country. That seems to be how it played out.
Yeah. Well, Prigozhin was taking the bigger risk.
Another question from somebody was: does Ukraine have enough troops to do this right?
Meaning the offensive,
the push. I mean,
and the push.
Theory, yeah.
Yep, they do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They have the troops. They have most of the equipment. And again, if Russia is pulling back because of their own domestic issues, they can get the anti-aircraft systems closer to the 91 border and control their airspace better. So. Yeah, they have everything. I think they have everything they need. General Zaluzhny and President Zelensky disagree with me. That's their right, and they certainly know better than me because they're the ones conducting the war. But it would be good if they could get there. If we send them ATACMS, the long range missile systems that we have, they're similar to the HIMARS. They're basically a different variant of HIMAR that is just much more long range. That reseizing Crimea will be an inevitability. Yeah, okay. Ben Hodges knows his stuff. He's a very very accomplished general. I've never been concerned about whether or not Ukraine was going to take back if all but everything in their push for a 91 border. Crimea, to me, I've kind of vacillated on Crimea. I'm not 100% sure. Where I stand now is that Crimea must actually be Ukrainian again, because if it isn't, then it's always just going to be an incentive for Russia to keep coming back and coming back and coming back.
By the way, the Zrada like the pro-Russian version of that counter their new theory. Watch for this to float around Tanky Town. Okay, how about this theory? Putin and Prigozhin staged this drama to ferret out the traitors in Russia, have a fake coup, and see who gets a hard-on, who switches sides, and who starts making phone calls to the U.S. and UK. Hey, this whole thing is super surreal and crazy, so why not? I'll tell you why not. Because you're gonna tell me they're gonna shoot down 3 of their own helicopters and 1 of their own airplanes and have a firefight at the border and pull people off the front lines right during the giant push with Ukraine as a counterintelligence move? Not
only that, but you send a message to all Russians that we are not united,
right?
That there are factions,
yes,
that they're fighting amongst themselves, which has been something that Moscow has been desperate to hide from the people. No, come on, no, that's tanky copium. That's all it is, and you're right. There is going to be much more of that. I love the fact that I hate Prigozhin deeply, but I love the fact that before he launched this whole thing, he was like, yeah, nobody bombed anybody in Donbass. That was a bunch of bull.
Right. He's going to dial that shit back now.
Ukrainians were targeting Russian forces. And that is a tent pole for the tankies to be like, you're upset about Donbass now. Why weren't you upset when it was Ukraine bombing them? And then to have Prigozhin come out and say, well, actually, they're gonna look. Tanky's gonna tank. They're gonna try and cope with this as best they can, and then they're gonna call me a warmonger, and they're gonna call me, you don't see the truth, sort of thing. The truth will out. The truth will out. What will be will be.
Right.
I am comfortable in what I have surmised from my years of experience, the contacts that I have, my being on the ground here. This goes one way. Again, another prediction that I'm making that I feel is an inevitability. Putin is screwed, and likewise, Ukraine is going to be sovereign. It is going to be democratic, and it is going to have all, if not almost all, of its territory returned to it. It's just, it has to be that way, because if it isn't, it's just going to keep happening.
Right.
It has to be concluded. No more wars of independence, no more border disputes. The stretch of land between the Baltic, the Adriatic, and the Black Sea has to be once and for all determined as to who is in control of it. And call me crazy, think that the people who live on that land should be the ones making the decisions for that nation. So, it's going to end with a Ukrainian victory, and it's going to end with Putin being screwed. And Russia then is going to have to do some very, very hard work, and it should. And I'm hoping that ultimately Russia benefits from this war too. In the sense that now it's time to reassess who we are. If we're not empire, who are we? Where do we fit? And what kind of nation do we want to be? And hopefully the Russians will do that earnestly. But right now, they're in a spiral. They're in an absolute spiral.
I agree. And on that note, I'll let you go. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for everybody in the chat for hanging out as well.
Great work yesterday. I watched your stream. I watched all 2, 3, almost 3 hours of it.
Yeah.
As it was kind of breaking. Great job on that. Great job on the community for keeping you posted and all the information that came flooding in. Look, this isn't over, Hal.
Nope.
We're going to talk about this on Wednesday. This will still be going on. The repercussions for it were going to be felt for a very long time. Exactly. And I'll just leave with the point that, no matter what you might hear from people who are desperate to kind of spin a different narrative, and you know who you are.
That's right.
No, this is bad. This is bad for Russia. This shows how fractured, how messed up Russia is right now. And it can only be a good thing for Ukraine.
Again, the easiest thing is just plug in another leader. Another leader rather. We used to talk about, what if Obama did something like Trump did? That became almost like a meme because it was so consistent. The same thing is true here. Can you imagine what they would be saying about Joe Biden if, again, Blackwater had threatened the Pentagon and had crossed the U.S. border into the country with troops, shot down 3 helicopters and an airplane by itself? Then what you would say about Biden if he had negotiated a settlement where those guys can go make money in the rest of the world as long as they leave you alone, and you will fire the head of the Pentagon because they asked you to. It boggles the mind. Anyways, I appreciate you being here. We'll see you on Wednesday.
All right, buddy. Talk on
everybody
Wednesday.
check out his
don't
vlog.
Be afraid to drop me a line. Check out my vlog. I think I got it down to a concise point about what I think is happening here. So, And if you want to call on me before Wednesday, I'll just DM me. And
I will. That's a great idea. Okay. Peace out.
This is going to be
it's going to be an ongoing thing. Absolutely. All right. Take care. Okay. I'll talk to you later. And thanks so much. Guys. Don't forget to check out his vlog.
Good job yesterday. Check out my vlog. Bye-bye.
Bye. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it today. Lots of moving news. So I'm sorry if I missed out on any of the stuff that was going on in the chats. Thank you guys for the super chats and the support today and yesterday especially. Thanks for the Venmo support and all that kind of stuff. And thanks for the new Patreon people that we've gotten because of this. Because I feel like people are increasingly aware that you're in good hands. Because I actually care enough not to give a shit. I don't care what some people say about my opinion on some things because I know they're true. And I hate people on it riles me up. I have a chip on my shoulder about people who waste other people's time. And so I wouldn't do that to you. And I appreciate you guys being here. And It's just nice that you're here, and I appreciate it so much. Anyways, we got a huge crowd today, so new people, give a thumbs up, support the show, like it. If you're a troll, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. You broaden us out into the algorithm in a way that none of us that are actually interested in what's said here can do. So another round of applause for the trolls today. Good luck. I hope you're getting paid enough at the Macedonian hacker farm you work at now that Prigozhin's checks will clear again. And I will see you guys. Let's see. I'll see you Monday. But until then, remember.
Wasn't that long ago. We had to like fighting number 2. I like fighting number 2. We had to vaccine. I broke their ass.
I agree. I'm a dope.
De-engineering. I broke their ass.
River.
I think people saw that loud and clear.
Oh yeah, that's normal.
Action replays in magnified fortune. Even brought a safecracker. Christopher Columbus. I was a private business people. I've been involved in the 2 greatest scams in American history. Here I am like an idiot. You can see it's a back door, but I call it a smart door.
Dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Where's there?